Okay, one sec. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, the devices get reset every single time I do this. It's very frustrating. I don't know why. Say something, Dan?
Okay, let's try this out. I just heard you, so
Okay,
hopefully I hear myself in a second.
I hope so. Let us know in the chat if you can hear us right now.
Yeah, right?
We are just a bunch of 30-year-old boomers trying to figure out this technology.
Not that old, but... Okay, we're good. I can now hear myself, which is perfect. Awesome. Thanks, guys,
Fantastic.
for your patience.
So, what did you guys
Ugh.
think of our April Fool's video? I can officially announce that it was fake. That is not the real battle scroll. Um, it's not. They're not renaming Daughters of Cain. They're not getting rid of Seraphon. None of that's happening. Yeah, let us know
Yeah,
what you
thankfully.
thought. We had a really good time making it.
Look, man, I'm saying dragons at 280, is it really that crazy?
Not at all.
Probably
Not at all.
fine, right? Like the Dragons list adds what, maybe like 100 points if you bring 2 squads. It's
Well,
120.
considering that Oops had 6 in it, so if you're
180 points.
saving 60 points there, yeah, I was gonna say.
It's
No,
not that
it's
much.
oh no, wait, they didn't have 6, it's got 3. Yeah, 180 points. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. I'll take that. That's a chariot that I
sure.
need.
Yeah, there you go. That list needs to be stronger, right? So
Or the new salamander that I
yeah,
need for Ren 3 dragons. That's what I need.
yeah. We'll see how many points that guy costs. That'll be very interesting when that book comes out.
Excited for the new Seraphon book.
Me too, man. Me too. And apparently, you're getting the new box now.
I'm being convinced to convert into the lizard or the great plan, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I expand into it. I'm already playing Idoneth next weekend, so that's going to be interesting. I'm borrowing some Idoneth, so I'm expanding my horizons already. We'll see.
If you're just joining us in the chat, we got a poll. We're doing a quick review on Slanesh, and we want to know what you guys think of the new Slanesh book. So feel free to drop into the chat and vote on that poll if you think Slanesh is S tier, A tier, B tier, or C tier. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Very curious about that army because it's a very polarizing book. People either really like it or they really hate it.
Yeah. Are you there, Jack? By the way, just checking in.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Oh, all right. Well, why don't we get started then?
Yeah, let's
I
do
tried
it.
to turn my camera on, and the backlit from the monitors at work is killing the camera, so I turned it back
Oh,
on.
good, dude.
Okay, so that's fine. You can just stay like that.
And Mrigank should be joining us shortly here. He's running a little bit late.
Perpetually
But
late Mrigank.
yeah, why don't we get started anyway?
Yep. Take us away, Dan.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us here today. We're going to be covering the meta, covering our painting contest results. Some really great stuff. Thank you guys for your submissions. But first of all, got to cover the housekeeping. Kaiju Gaming Lounge. They are an awesome group of people, awesome store out of Orlando, Florida. Local to me, we've had Carl on the podcast before. He's one of the owners, and yeah, you can shop everything GW from them, as well as some great gaming aids. And speaking of which, you'll see here there is a an awesome picture of my annihilators about to charge the heck out of my buddy Noel's Bloodthirster there, and I'm able to measure that 7-inch distance with an awesome Stormkeep custom measuring stick with a 7-inch side and a 9-inch side. That lets you go ahead and measure those cool Thunderstrike deep strikes. Also works for Beasts of Chaos if you happen to be inclined in that direction. And along with that, I made an awesome 10-inch charge there with my new Stormkeep dice. Very cool. So if you want to grab our merch, you can go ahead and do so. They're really awesome sticks. They look real snazzy, and you can even get your own custom colors on them. They come in. I don't have them anymore because I colored them, but basically they'll come in with a sticker that goes on top of this, but it'll leave the design parts open, and you can paint it with literally like with model paint or spray paint it and have it your own color. And you can pick the base color if you want a black, the cool blue, or one of the clear ones. The clear one's actually really clean as well. We have those available as well as a combat gauge. So you got your standard 3-inch gauge, 2-inch, 1-inch, and a half inch. Awesome usable stuff. You check out Kaiju. they can go ahead and ship you those. You can do international shipping as well, and you use Stormkeep code at checkout for 15% off.
Yeah,
Other than that, yeah,
the dice are
great
almost
stuff.
sold out. We did like a single wave of dice just to see what would happen, and they've almost sold out at this point. So if you're looking to pick up a set, make sure you grab them before they're gone.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into our first topic here: the results of our Evocator painting contest. I'm a little annoyed that we were so delayed on putting out that Dracoline video. I wish it went out like a week sooner than it did. But in addition to having a painting contest about Evocators, we did put out a video called "Why You Should Use Dracolines," because we are all big Dracoline enjoyers here, and they've been fantastic this season. And it seems like a lot of other people are also really enjoying them because most of the entries we had to this contest were for Dracolines.
Yeah.
I guess they're just a more interesting model to paint. Frankly, you can show off a lot more techniques. There's more surface area to work with, and we had a lot of fantastic entries. We had to narrow it down to 3, and we've got a couple of honorable mentions as well. But if you want to see all of them, feel free to jump in the Discord. There's the Painting Evocators channel still at the top of the server, so you can just jump in there and then take a look at all of them. The winners are going to receive their choice from a pool of a Stardrake, a box of Paladins, and a Stormstrike Chariot. So pretty great prize pool this time. There was a lot on the line.
Oh yeah. I already have a new box of Dracolines. I'm so excited already. Like you just got to get more, you know.
Well, maybe, yeah, maybe next GHB we'll be running more than a squad of 3. Maybe that squad of 6 will finally be usable. So let's go into our first honorable mention here. This entry came from Coraxis, and it is a I was going to use some swear words here, but I won't. But it's a fantastic explosion of color. And I love the multicolored Dracolines here, tied together by the uniform armor plating on the guys. In addition to that, it was also just really well done. Like if you take a look at the blue armor, the highlights are all done very naturally, especially on like the shoulder plates, which is something I don't bother with on my army. I just paint them a flat single color, and I just hit the edges with a bit of color. But yeah, really colorful, really technically proficient. The cloaks are shaded very well. Very smooth gradient on those. The skin is done really well. It kind of makes my skin painting feel inadequate. I've never really figured out how to paint the flesh on these Dracolines. I don't know if it's fur or if it's like a scaly lizard thing going on, but this makes it look really good.
Yeah, it's done awesome. I love the colorations. This makes me like it gives me good vibes, right? Like I kind of really want a vaporwave themed Stormcast army now, right? For full of color and pop. But these are just super clean, and the skin just pops. Everything is just the color palette comes together super well. Love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of muted colors. They're not super bright. They're not neon. They're colorful, but it's still like a muted purple, just because the way the highlighting's been done. It kind of is almost like a pale purple on the edges, like a paler blue, and then kind of like a deeper saturated orange. So most of the time when people paint their Dracolines, they go with a single color on all 3, to identify the squad. But I like the idea of mixing up the colors, especially when they're done this well. This looks really great. Yeah, so well earned honorable mention there, Coraxis. And our next honorable mention is from Vortid, who is a previous winner of our painting competitions, and he has this exceptional what did you just call it, Dan, earlier? Like a synthwave style?
Yeah, like a vaporwave look, right? Like I've been looking, there's so many cool colors on these Dracolines compared to like I swear any of our other painting competitions have maybe been a little less dynamic in the color palettes, but all of these have been really good, and this is definitely a great example of that.
What really put this one up so high for me was that sword. The one sword there, like that little, what would you call it? Stippling on the sword looks fantastic. Yeah. I really like that with the gems shining through white underneath. It looks really good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, the light source. I can't remember what they call that. The point of light effects on here are excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the source lighting is great.
Source lighting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool style, Vortin. I hope you keep submitting to our contest, man. It's a joy to look at these. All right, coming up for our third place, we have Yoji, who is not a stranger to our server. He's been around for a very long time, and these Dracolines are, until I saw his Karazai the other day, I thought these were his best work to date. These are fantastic. The white skull masks with the nice thin black trim right around the edges of it to differentiate it from the gold looks really, really good. The skin on the Dracolines is fantastic. The like extra purple shading underneath the scales to make it look like that's like a hardened carapace almost. Looks really good. Oh, Mrigank, how you doing, buddy?
Mrigank.
Doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
I like that the Dracolines actually have like an underbelly on this. Like there's a different like paler tone underneath the models compared to the outside. And when you have that with the scaly part, it's like this 3-tone thing going on with the Dracolines. Looks great. This is fantastic work.
Yeah, you really get, and then the basing. I've always loved his basing and that cool fall. Just it's just a very cool look. I love how many colors there are, and yet it all still just looks great. Like there's just so much color differentiation here. It's awesome because some of them, even in Vortid's previous one, like you've got a very similar color palette. Here he's used so many different colors that complement each other and transition super well. I love it. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blues he uses are also fantastic. Really, really high tone blues for the highlights. They look great. That kind of style really looks great on cloaks. You can see he hasn't done like really sharp edge highlights on the cloaks, and it fits naturally with those shades of blue though. It's really well done.
Good stuff, man. Congrats.
Yep, definitely well earned. I gotta, I'm sure you'll watch this at some point. So let us know, or let me know maybe, how you came up with the specific patterning on the Dracolines. If that was just like random, because it looks like there's some kind of methodology to it. They get smaller. The angles get a little bit rounder as you get further down towards the feet. So just let me know your thoughts on that.
Looks great, man.
In second place is this gorgeous entry from White Paints, who did an Indian-themed unit for his Dracolines, and his style is so distinct, and I'm so happy that we can finally feature him as a winner because he's been in like honorable mentions so many times in a row, and I'm just so stoked that he's finally put one forward that is this gorgeous. Like this is phenomenal. I wanted to draw attention in particular to the patterning of fur on the Dracoline. It looks like a tiger, like a white tiger. And that's something I always had in my head.
Bengal tiger. Yep, pretty good.
Yeah, beautiful work. Absolutely beautiful. I think, guys, you should definitely go into the Discord and find this post because he's actually even put in like the red dots on the foreheads on these guys. The faces are painted not perfectly is not the right word, but the style is great. It looks really.
I wonder where he got the heads because I've been looking for because those are like Sikh troops. I think from I think I'm pretty sure they're like from World War II base game, but. I wonder where he found those heads because I've been looking for one because I was making like a Daughters of Cain force that was like sort of based on like Indian sub themes. So, but it's just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, gotta get with him in the Discord and find out. But holy crap, it just all comes together. Like I love how the basing isn't super crazy, like detailed or anything. It's got the right amount of details in the right spaces to fill out, negative space. It's great.
I really like how the bones are there. They jut out. They're like a 3D element to the bases, so it's not just a single flat piece. The crystals are there, and they kind of have that same kind of tone as the armor of the one on the right, the Evocator on the right side. Her armor matches the crystal, so even if they're not made of the same material, it all just fits into the single palette. It doesn't distract from the whole piece, which is really nice. And that's something you got to consider when you're doing such drastically different colors across the 3 different models in a unit. You still need elements to tie them in together. And I also want to point out the kit bashing of the Vanguard Hunter sword on the Evocator Prime there. That looks cool. Evocator swords are sick, man. We got to see more of them. So, fantastic work, White Paints. Well deserved second place. Congratulations. And our first place winner is Andreas SCE with another beautiful piece. He has definitely placed first in our contest before with his style, and it seems like he has gotten better at it because this is really, really well done. He has this immaculate highlighting on the skin on the Dracolines that makes it look not wet, but shiny and almost like
Mhm.
transcendental. Like it looks gorgeous, and that ties in really well with the coifs on the evocators themselves. They've got these like long, uh, flowing hair, and that's got these little shiny bits in it too. So that ties in with the Dracoline flesh. And yeah, everything else about his style is present. He's got this gorgeous non-metallic metal that he uses for the armor trim. Like you can see it, especially on the model on the left, the Evocator Prime. I guess he's got 2 primes in this unit, but that's okay. Um, the non-metallic gold there on the trim looks great, looks absolutely fantastic on flat pieces like that. Every scale is highlighted immaculately. Just beautiful work. These are fantastic.
Yeah, man. Especially Brave going for the open faces instead of a helmet. Absolutely made those faces pop, man. Good stuff. Like you can see just the cheek hollows and everything is just well done. It's not distracting at all. The eyes are well done.
Hmm.
It's just good stuff.
I'm just noticing now that even the claws have this like celestial feeling to them because of the little dots on them. Like he definitely took the
Mm,
celestial Dracoline into respect or into consideration
heck
when
yeah.
he worked on these. These are fantastic. I
Congrats, man.
very well deserved. Uh,
Everybody oh,
well, we have one criticism, and I think you already know what it's going to be, because we've mentioned it before, and I think you've already with your next project you're going to try to tackle it. But the bases are just a little bit plain, and it doesn't do justice to how great the paint job on top is. These
mhm.
flat cork bases, yeah, feels like you can just push it a little bit further, man. I really want to see what you come up with on the next model you paint, which perfectly segues into the next slide here, which is that our next painting contest has already begun, and the subject this time is big dragons. So if you want to submit your fully painted Stardrake or Karazai or Krondys, you have a chance to win some prizes, and this runs all the way until April 30th, basically right before midnight. And if you're interested, just jump into the Discord server, look in the Painting Big Dragon channel, and make sure you submit your entry with a timestamp. And yeah, so if you want to join in, you don't have to be the best painter in the world. These contests are not about winning prizes for most people. It's just about being part of the community, talking about your work in progress shots, getting inspired, finding new ideas, appreciating people's models. This is, we do have winners because contests are fun, but
Yeah.
it's not about winning. It's about participating.
And while technical skill is always appreciated and definitely a large part of our winning, sometimes just cool concepts and designs can kind of take the edge in ours. I'm not an amazing painter by any means. I try to vote for stuff that just speaks to me in different ways, whether it's technical skill or also just really good concept. So even if you think you've got something just super unique, it may not be like the most technical painter ever. Submit it. We want to see it, man. You
Mhm.
you never know.
Yeah, a lot of times we vote for things because they just look cool, not because they have necessarily the most proficient technique involved. Um, Kit bashes are awesome. We love seeing kit bashes, especially. So if you have a cool color scheme, you have a cool kit bash, feel free to just drop it in. You never know. Our criteria are not
Cool.
like Golden Demon, where we look for very
Yeah.
specific things and specific styles. We just look for whatever looks cool.
I am not proficient enough to do that, to judge that kind of level, I'll tell you that.
Well, this time around, it's a big, gorgeous centerpiece. So I hope we see a mix of cool styles and cool techniques and fun basing habits. The Stardrake in particular has been really underappreciated. Hopefully, we get a lot of people submitting that model. I'm a big fan of it. Despite the goofy pose, I am a big fan of the Stardrake. All right, jumping into our second topic of the day, we are going to look at some lists that have been doing quite well in the metagame. Daniel, take it away.
Yeah, man. So first off, is out of the March Mayhem AOSGT back on March 11th. This is actually a 4-1 list. I just wanted to really show what Slaves of Darkness could do with Splintered Fang, and this one did a pretty good job, I gotta say, from Michael Vagenos, and it's in Ravagers, of course, because you're running the Splintered Fang and Archeon, who makes them fight on death and such. So just adding some extra utility there. A lot of the times, it's like you really just want to kill the army around Archeon, and I mean here you still obviously want to kill the army around Archeon to win. Um, but that army's got a lot more teeth than maybe in some other more Chaos Knight focused list, or even like trying to run Vanguard alongside Archeon could be a little tough. It's hard to be in many places at once. This has got a little bit more bodies, a little bit more space they can take up, and yeah, it's really neat to see this list. You know, you've got Exalted Hero of Chaos as the general with Idolater Lord to give those Splintered Fang the Slanesh keyword, and then Archaon, of course, Demonic Speed, you got to have it. Chaos Sorcerer Lord doing a lot of utility with Warp Reality, Tunnel Master, all the Splintered Fang that you need there. The Unmade for more utility. I believe they shut off the commands, right? Yeah, they stopped redeploy. And then Chaos Knights to, help screen, a little bit of speed, just a general utility unit there, almost like a chariot in our list,
Do we know what mark and banner the Chaos Knights took?
I thought
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just Slanesh again.
Yeah, I think it might have just been Slanesh again.
Yep.
I thought I had that on there.
Cool.
Let's see.
See, I knew the Archaon Ravagers thing was
Nurgle.
the right way to play Archaon. With Splintered Fang, reviving them, and then having the command to fight on death means you can charge in, fight with a unit, and then as it dies, it gets to fight a second time. And for a really high damage unit, that's really, really useful. I didn't think Slanesh would be the way to go. I was thinking probably Nurgle or
I think
Khorne.
they just want speed.
Yeah, they just
Having
want
the
speed.
Run and charge or and +1 to charge is like really, really good, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're slow. Chaos
Yeah.
Knights I can see in Nurgle or Slanesh because
were
he
Nurgle.
might just use them as turn them sideways and turn them into like a durable screen.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were Nurgle for that. So yeah, they were just a screen, utility pin piece unit. But yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff. He went into Nurgle. I'm sure he was able to meet that damage check well enough. There's plenty of damage here. Soulblight, same thing. I mean, you literally just eat zombies.
Mhm.
Nurgle again, a Gitz list, which would have been real interesting. I would have liked to have seen that matchup. I think that Gitz list was Carl
I think that goes
Ong.
on a double. If he doubles and somehow gets near the shrine and destroys it with Archaon, it's over.
Yeah, it was Carl Ong with triple reinforced Squigherd and triple reinforced Bounders units. So it was
Oof.
definitely a tough matchup. That would have been a really cool matchup to see. But he pulled
Mhm.
out the win there. And the final loss was actually to our next list.
Well, before we move on, there's a couple of things I
yeah.
want to point out here. You're right that the Splinter Fang add the damage that Archaon doesn't have. That's always the problem with Archaon. He's fast, he's durable, but for whatever 900 points he is, he doesn't do a lot of damage. And he can just be walled by things, which is unfortunate. But the Splintered Fang then are super high damage. So this is a natural combo. This is pretty much how I envisioned Archaon seeing play. Exalted Hero of Chaos, I think we mentioned this in our review that the only way he'd ever see play is if you need a hero that needs to take Idolater Lord. For some reason, it can't be a Chaos Sorcerer Lord. He's the cheapest hero that can do that. I guess you could take a Dark Oath or something. Actually, yeah, I think I'd rather have the Dark Oath here. Wouldn't that make more sense? Because you can revive the Dark Oath. Can he take the Idolater Lord? That's a good question. Maybe there's.
I don't actually know. I'm unsure.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, the let's take a look at the Ironjawz list that he lost to. Because
I was gonna say, to your point earlier, the Archaon Splinter Fang thing, it almost feels like Marathi and melee snakes.
Yeah,
it's like a similar combination.
But you revive
anyways,
them.
Yes. Yeah, let's go on to the next list. Which was what this list eventually took a loss to, and it's the brother of one of our recent guests. Actually, we haven't released that video yet.
Yeah, but
Coming soon. But Nicholas Walters on Ironjawz. Nick is a great guy, and his brother's awesome. We're doing our Tzeentch how to counter video with him, and both of them are great players. And he's been playing Ironjawz long time. He's a really great player at it. And it's just so cool to see an Ironjawz list that isn't a 1-drop. It's a Warlord Galatian Command Ironjawz list. You got a Mega Boss and Maw Crusher with the Arcane Tome, Master Magic, Baston, and then Basham Lads, which I thought was kind of an interesting choice.
What's the Basham
Warchanter-
Lads? Because you almost never see that.
I think Basham Lads, isn't that the you can go ahead and pile in
Oh, the fighting spell.
fighting spell?
Is that it? You fight in the hero phase?
That one is.
Or is that +1 to wound? I think it might be +1 to wound.
It's +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Basham Lads is
Oh, Basham
18-inch
Lads.
aura of +1 to wound.
Okay. I'm thinking of a different ability, I guess.
People always just take the teleport instead, but I don't think you need it.
No, I don't think so. Orc Warchanters, 2 of them, one with fix and beat, one would get him beat.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's a heal and the bonus damage Warchanter. And then the shaman's got the teleport spell. So there you go. That's what's
So
keeping the teleport.
he is 70 points down. Is there not an
Yeah,
endless spell he could have picked
on
here?
1930 list. I think he just really wants the triumph
Yeah.
or denying the triumph too.
Yeah, I think denying the triumph is more important because a lot of what Gitz is doing these days is taking double triumph and then they'll put it on Squigherd so Squigherd don't run away.
They take an
Or
enhancement to go triumph. That's oh my god.
yeah, because
So
there's
degenerate.
too many things that get past inspiring presence, so they need to stop Boingard Bounders or something, or
Well,
like Grots running
say
away
not
so they can
Squiggard.
rally them back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
Boulderhead
Squigs
Bounders.
can't get any commands, so that's not a concern.
Yeah.
But the triumph on them is god, that's gross tech. That's not something I
Mhm.
expected to see happening. But I knew the Gitz list would only get better. That's a very interesting innovation.
Yep,
But anyway,
and the thing is, their points are so good that they can just afford to be 80 points down. It doesn't really affect them
Yeah.
because they're just
so
I love
silly.
how this list is a 1930 list, but it still has 133 wounds, but only 27 models.
Yep.
The wound efficiency is great.
I love that he's taking brutes. Nobody
Yeah.
seems to be taking them, but he is. I love brutes. I love the fact that this army really lacks like internal balance, like identity. Brutes are supposed to be these like killers that just absolutely wreck you, and they're stopping Gitz. Most of the Gitz models are 1 or 2 wounds, so they're not going to be taking objectives as long as they're in combat with brutes. So
It's interesting. In our Discord chat, Nathan Blackmer was talking about seeing a lot of point bids in his local games as well. That's kind of interesting. I don't know about 100+ point bids, but that's pretty aggressive. But yeah, definitely that's interesting seeing more triumph chasing.
This is a
But
very
I
interesting
love that.
Ironjawz list, yeah.
Yeah, I love the Galatian Command Battalion. You got the Mega Boss with the brutes I mean, it makes them almost more defensive, right? Like even if you're against an opposing Ironjawz, like you can just
Ironjawz have the speed
bonk
to
them
play
back.
defensive. The
Yeah.
problem is they have no ranged and no magic power. Like they're all melee, so them playing defensive is very difficult. I think this is just playing tactically because it's got 4 GCs in it, and that's not typical, right? You typically just stick with 3 in a battle regiment.
This is almost identical to the list I lost to at Sparkle Party.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
This is a very
Yeah.
interesting direction to go. If you're you got to be really careful with your resources here because you don't have extra units that can sit back and hold stuff. So every engagement you have to take has to be the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And if those Gore Gruntas get walled, then yeah, that's the stopping point. So looking at the matchups here, Skaven, Stormcast, maybe the opponent dropped out in the 3rd round. Maybe that's what happened there. And then
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly happened there. For some reason, on BCP, a lot of lists were just kind of missing from that round and some of the other rounds. I'm not sure if it's because they dropped and maybe the TO running it maybe just
maybe they
removed them,
dropped
but
after that. It's hard to know, right?
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened there. But then he faced Soulblight, which easy damage check, and then Slaves to Darkness was of course the previous list that he managed to mess up, which I could definitely see this list absolutely like rocking up on Archeon and messing up his day.
What was the Stormcast list that he played against?
Oh, actually, I think this was the Stormcast list that I wanted to talk about. Was it this one? It was James O'Brien's list, and it was a it was a 4 Vexillor list, so it was like a pseudo Comet Fall list with a Horrorghast, but he went for a Dragon package, a Nitroconus, and then a block of 2 Stormdrake Guard, which I thought was interesting, along with
it's basically
3
Mortal Wounds, the package. Yeah, it's a variation on Comet Fall. I know before this he tried like a bunch of Annihilators. I feel like it just catches some lists out of guard, but like if you know what it's doing, you can beat it very easily.
Yeah. He had the Farstriders and Gyrocopters in there, I'm sure, for some mobility and for teleporting around. The 3 Annihilators is battle line to, drop more mortal wounds. It could definitely catch some people off guard. It wasn't this one that I was thinking about, though. There was an interesting Stormcast list later, but yeah, no, he was able to take the win there. I could definitely see that here, because Ironjawz, I mean, you've got enough wound density. Like, you do some mortal wounds to the Gorgruntas. I mean, I guess you are worried about them running, maybe?
Maybe.
Oh, wait, but they can issue Inspiring Presence to 3 units, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Very efficient.
Yeah, actually, just kind of. Yeah. Be interesting to see how he deployed against that. But good stuff, yeah. That's a really cool list. This is probably like my favorite list of the day, to be honest. was
It
cool.
is cool, yeah. Those Walter brothers, man, always getting up to something.
Yeah, they're great. Cool.
All right, jumping into
Going on, we
Flesh Eater Quartz list. Oh, boy.
yeah, from Joshua Glenn, taking the Feast Day, which I believe is they get to do free
Feeding Frenzy.
free feeding frenzy, yeah, once a turn. Went for a Warlord Battalion and a Galatian Veterans Battalion. So this one, revolves around the Crypt Horrors to do some damage with Galatian Veterans, along with just a single Terrorgeist. He could have fit the second Terrorgeist, which is kind of interesting, but he went for the Zombie Dragon. Do you know why, Mrigank? He would have gone for that instead of the double Terrorgeist?
Probably has to do with the flaming weapon on there, right?
Actually, it might have something to do with the either flaming weapon or the breath, the dragon breath that's based on bravery.
Oh, is that why he would have taken it? Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, because it does like if you're like
Terrorgeist.
3 more, like if you're low bravery, you can do a lot of mortal wounds. The other thing I think is it summons a courtier to the battlefield. Other than that, because the Terrorgeist summons knights to the battlefield, like flayers or horrors. This is the one thing that can use the command ability to summon a Varghulf courtier, for instance. So it frees up your Archregent to summon something like 20 ghouls if you want to.
Gotcha. Yeah, he had the Crypt.
Oh, also, one more thing. The spell, like a Born Ghoul King on Terrorgeist has the 5-up ward spell on themselves. The Zombie Dragon has reroll wound rolls, wholly within 16 of the caster.
Oh, is that what Razor Claw is?
No, that's a
No, it's a Malefic Hunger.
Oh,
It's,
he has
no,
it on the
no, Malefic Hunger is a spell on the War Scroll spell on the Born Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm really just getting familiar with Flesh Eater Quartz because they haven't been too popular, but they have some really cool builds. This is one of them, but I've seen some other ones with revolving around the ghouls. That's kind of interesting, but it was cool to see this one as well.
It's really intriguing because you went with Crypt Horrors, which are a Ren 0 unit, right? They always bounce off armor. That's always been their weakness. But that many dice, it will club most things to death. So looking at his matchups here, that would definitely do well into Soulblight, into Ideneth, into Cities. I'm very surprised at the Stormcast and Slaves matchups going so well, because I would assume that if you're bringing 18 Crypt Horrors to a game, you would just bounce off armor. But I guess
Stormcast I can see, because Stormcast is tough, but not that tough, depending on what list they took.
Yeah,
obviously.
it really
if a Slaves... Yeah, but if Slaves got to round 5, it means they were probably running a very competent list, and for Flesh Eater Quartz to just club them. But then again, it could just be, I rolled up my Terrorgeist to 10 chosen, and it rolled, I don't know, I did Feeding Frenzy, and out of 6 attacks, I rolled 4 6s, and I did 24 mortal wounds, and that's the end of the chosen, right?
Yeah, if the Slaves was a typical Slaves list with like the Nargle block, I can definitely see this struggling unless you get that crazy high spike on the Terrorgeist. But if this is like the Ravager Slaves to Darkness, which is definitely the better way to play it overall, then this actually would do better into it because you just have mass damage for days and high wounds too, right? Like Crypt Horrors are 4 wounds apiece, I think. So that's like like their saves are trash, but they're 36 wounds for each of those blocks. That's a lot to chew through.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think anyone has the models for Ravagers, Paul. I'll be real with you.
Well,
There's
one
very
person
few people
did.
on this planet. Very few people on this planet do. So it's
just wait,
mathematically likely.
40k.
Also,
40k will launch, and then they'll start printing Splintered Fang.
Cadaver's Barricade is actually pretty dope. People don't realize this. It's a 20-point spell. It cuts down your movement. It's like a huge blocker in front of your dudes, and the range is actually really, really high on it. It's pretty high. It's almost like a
4 inches.
Flesh Eater. It's like a Flesh Eater Cord Runic Fireball. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
People underestimate it, and it catches them off guard every time.
20 points is such a good value for spells. I wish all spells were like 20 to 50.
It's basically free, right?
Yeah.
It's basically free, like practically.
If a spell is so powerful that it has to cost more than 50 points, that spell shouldn't exist, in my opinion. like Spell Portal, get rid of it. We don't need it in the game. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, so this thing is like, if he fought all these non-death armies, which is what I see on the
it has to be non-death.
slides except for Soulblight, he can just take whatever their big hammer unit on the board is and reduce their movement to like 2 inches for chosen. You can see how he got the drop on them, basically.
Yeah, because none of those armies have particularly good dispelling. So it could be that they're just whiffing the dispel rolls on the barricade.
Or if they do dispel the dispel roll, if they do try and dispel, maybe they don't have enough wizards left to get stuff like Mystic Shield, Demonic Power, all those buffs that they really need.
What was round 4 Cities of Sigmar? Was that Tempest Eye? What are we seeing with cities these days?
Let's see that one. Round 4. Oh, that was actually a list you might recognize from last year's LVO. It was
Phoenician?
yeah, Phoenician. Jeremy
Right
Lefebvre
on.
on Phoenician. Yeah, I was doing triple Phoenix Guard, Drake Knights, Shadow Warriors, Flagellants.
2 Frost Phoenix.
Sick.
Yeah, Phoenix. Yep, double Phoenix. And
Yep.
the Assassins, just like he used to. Yeah, the triple
Yep,
Assassins.
yeah,
Yep.
he's been tinkering
Yep,
with that
yep.
list for 2 years now. I think he brought the same one to this year's LVO too.
I wonder if he's heard
Yeah.
the rumors.
Or you mean the White Fang confirmed rumors
Oh,
about Phoenix
no.
Temple?
Oh
Yeah.
no. Yeah, he went 4-1 at that tournament. He was 4th there.
Nice.
Jeremy.
Mhm.
Now we featured his Phoenician list when we started doing the live streams, and it was awesome. I really liked watching him on AOS Coach break it all down too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Good
yeah,
stuff.
this is cool, Joshua. Congratulations, man. This is a great list. This is definitely changing my mind on Flesh Eaters. They are not as bad as I thought they were.
There's a couple builds.
I wonder what's going to happen with OBR and Soulblight coming into the game, because the bravery stuff is really where low bravery is where Flesh Eaters shines, right? This obviously doesn't rely that much on bravery stuff because it's not using flares, it's using horrors. But with more death, like bravery 10 armies coming into the game, I think the Flesh Eaters are just. I think this is the peak, is what I'm getting at. I don't think it's getting better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got some very clear weaknesses. If you're like Ironjawz, you will smash this list apart, right? Because you just have all the damage in the world to get through them. And if you have good shooting and you
Lumineth
can
probably
really
too,
frustrate.
Lumineth would probably smash that list.
Yeah, if you can slow them down, deny them their magic, or like the most important thing against this list is to take the first turn and try to kill two or three heroes. And if they're dead, this list falls apart.
Yeah, they need a hero phase in order to use their commands.
Yeah, they need the heroes to like do the whole reroll because this list will reroll hits and wounds, which is another reason why the volume of attacks is really good.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the next one here. We have an Ogre list from Zach Pfeifer.
Yep, Boulderhead. So we're not running Iron Blasters here. This is cool. It's a battle regiment, so little more boring on that front than the previous lists have been. But you've got Frostlord and Stonehorn, touched by the Everwinter, which I believe is -1 to be wounded, which actually works in range. I found out.
Touched by the Everwinter makes you a priest.
Oh, that's the priest one. Rockmane Elder is the -1 to wound. Is that right?
Correct.
There we go. I was like, I knew it's one of the two. I remember facing a very similar list to this just last weekend. Arcane Tome Flaming Weapon, of course, for obvious reasons. More damage, more better. Heal, because it's a priest. You got touched by the Everwinter for that. Huskard on Stonehorn with Metal Cruncher and Pulverizing Hailstorm. I think Pulverizing Hailstorm was the gives him extra charge mortals.
No, it's pick a point on the battlefield and do mortal wounds.
Oh, it's that one. Okay. That one's pretty cool. I believe that's the prayer, because that one's a native priest, right, Jack?
Yeah. He's a native priest, and it's like a Knight Vexillor. Range of 18,
Yeah.
you pick a point, everyone within 3 on a 2-up takes D3.
But really, that's not what he's using. The Huskard is using his War Scroll prayer to give you +1 to wound.
Yep.
It's good stuff. My favorite part of the list, which this was kind of rough to face last weekend. Bloodpelt Hunter with Tunnel Master. Probably the coolest thing. Bloodpelt Hunter is able to do a normal move in the opponent turn if he's not within 9 inches, or is it combat range? I think it's 9 inches of any enemy units. Because Tunnel Master was eroded the way it was, it can teleport on your turn and it can sneakily deny tactics, kind of similar to the Assassins in Jeremy's list, coming out and just like taking an objective by like 1 model, or in this case 2 models. It can just pop up somewhere and really mess up your day. So that was something to look out for. Of course, he's got a Stonehorn, just a single Stonehorn, and then 2 packs of 4 Mournfang. So just a really, you got monster trucks, you've got the Mournfang pack for some speed, and it's a decent list. Good stuff.
Lots of bashing.
5 threats. That's good. It's definitely a limited threat range list, though, right? Like if it plays against something super long range, like 30-inch ranges, if it played into Underguts, for example, this would really struggle. The Iron Blast would just blow stuff off.
It's funny.
Yeah, you need Kragnos, I feel like, to make this kind of list work.
Or if you take the prayer that gives you +3 movement you can turn the Stonehorns into a 17-inch move unit.
Yeah, they're already pretty fast because they're always +2 to
Yeah.
move in this army,
Right.
and when they're hungry.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're
So
decently fast.
You can
Yeah.
get them around.
I think that extra +3 is pretty crucial.
Mhm.
I'd rather have that than heal, personally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
mean,
I'm pretty sure it gives them that trait gives them the prayer or all the prayers.
no.
If it's
so
already a
the
priest.
way-
If it's already a
the way-
priest, never mind.
It's all yeah. So if you took the Huskard and gave him Touched by the Everwinter,
gets-
he would know all of their prayers.
Yeah, it looks like him matchup Sylvaneth. You just run into them and hit them, and their woods mean nothing.
Yeah.
Night Haunt. That's an interesting one because I don't know. I wouldn't think this one has the volume to deal with ghosts. So I'd be curious to know what the Night Haunt player was doing. Right. Two wins against Ogre Mawtribes. That could be anything. It could be like a Kragnos with a bunch of
The third
tyrants.
one was Underguts.
Okay.
He actually did face the Lead Belchers and triple Iron Blaster list.
I wonder if they just deployed too close and they just got run over.
Yeah, that list didn't have any like Stonehorns or any Beastclaw Raider units.
Oh
Actually,
yeah,
it was all like foot stuff. That's why.
Yeah, you need an anchor Stonehorn for that list.
Yeah, that's what he got run over.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is this is all a 2-drop in a battle regiment, right?
This is just a battle regiment. It's a 1-drop.
Can't be a 1-drop.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, because Huskard is a commander.
It's got to be a 2.
Maybe he didn't have it in there and I put it in wrong.
The Iron Blaster list ends up being at least 3-drop.
One per Iron Blaster, yeah.
Yeah, so if you outdrop them, then you can rush forward, get into them, and start killing the cannons before they have a chance to fire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you don't, like your big guy, the Frostlord has a 5-up ward. He has a 3-up save. I'm pretty sure he's -1 to wound, but I'm not like. Mm-hmm. Isn't the Stormheart like natively +1 to -1 to wound or something?
No. He has Rockmane Elder for that.
So Rockmane Elder is good for that. Plus, you can go Finest Hour. You can go all-out defense against the Iron Blasters, and out of like the 6 shots, maybe like 4 will hit, 4 will go through. If 2 go through, fine. You take 2d3 + 3. You have wards. You'll take maybe 5 or 6 damage. They're not killing your. Yeah, you can heal exactly. They're not killing your guys that easy.
I guess heroic recovery with heal is pretty good.
Well, you can also do the pot. You can do the one.
Yeah, you can empty the pot to heal too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you just do all your healing and then you just start going. You start mowing people down. The Night Haunt list you faced was Quicksilver Dead, so it was Harridan. So it gets through the wards technically, but it's still
saves,
statistically less damage than Blade Guys, even with getting.
Yeah. Also, like the stupid like the monstrous action that lets them just fly over and do stupid things, like that just kills all the Night Haunt heroes, and then nobody can do after that. Yeah.
No, they'll have Spirit Hosts. Should be fine.
I guess so. Yeah.
I think the thing is like a lot of the charge mortals are like can get pretty insane. Like people don't realize it, but those charge mortals really add up. Like they can decimate a Night Haunt. Like if a Night Haunt is like a 20 block, they can decimate like more than half that unit before they even get into combat.
Yeah, that's one of the things we mentioned in our How to Counter Night Haunt was that charge mortals are very good against them because they can't discorporate through it because you can only do that in shooting or combat.
Yeah, the Gitz list he faced at the end, even though it was Jaws and Mork, it wasn't running like the big Swig Herd. It was running 2 blocks of 10 Bounders and a 40 block of Stabbas.
It's unusual.
Yeah, it was a little odd. Double Gobapalooza though.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Seems a little. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit more off the wall list. I'm sure there's more going on there. He went 4-1.
Despite how much I played against Beastclaw in first edition and I grew to hate it, I'm actually happy to see that it's back. Like a solid, aggressive Beastclaw list I think is necessary for the metagame so that it's not all, passive plays and just trading in the middle. I think this is important to have in the game, so I'm happy to see it back. I'm glad that Ogres are more than just Iron Blasters. All right, moving on.
Sounds good.
So, Stormcast Eternals.
This is one of our awesome regulars in the Discord. Stark Pister, who's goes under Kybitson in Discord. Awesome guy. Every time he talks Stormcast, he's on point. The guy has a lot of great takes. And this is just a really cool list. I've always wanted to run like Drake Spawn Knights, but I can never seem to fit them because we really need our battle line to make up our list, and we have such small margins to do so. So this is a multi-drop. I'm sure you'll enjoy this kind of list, Paul. So many drops. Everything is a
me.
drop here.
Double digits. That's what I like.
Let's go. Galatian Command Battalion. He's got we covered this. The Lord Castellan Protector combo is just so good. Quicksilver draw to fight first. Have Protectors fight first. So you charge them, they bonk you. You don't get to fight because you're dead. Tunnel Master, of course, for utility reasons. Relictor, High Priest Translocation, you expect that. In a Vanguard Battalion, I like that he put the Stormstrike Chariot in its own Vanguard Battalion from the other, like the Fulms and the Drakespawn Knights, because you know that you want the reroll charge on the Stormstrike Chariot separate from those, like Fulms, for example. It's all just very well thought out. Which, of course, 2nd Vanguard Battalion has the Battle Mage of Gur, classic, +2 to charge. You can use it to just move up and basically have 12-inch move fulminators. Even one of my favorite things is moving outside of 9 inches from somebody and just having that 7-inch charge, just not allowing them to redeploy, which is good, or just straight up doing the relic or translocate. There's a lot of utility there, or even if you just run up to them, not run, but move up to them and have that +2 to charge. It's all just very good. Battle Mage is solid. Drakespawn Knights are amazing. They're a cavalry based 3-up save 2 wound unit, and for 120 points.
110.
Super efficient unit. 110.
Mm-hmm.
Oh crap!
They
I
cost
could
the
have
same as
sworn.
Vanquishers. Yep.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, they're just so good. They're extremely good unit.
They're a great screen.
And,
For people who don't know, they are a Cities of Sigmar unit. Even though it sounds like
Yeah.
something that would be a Stormcast unit, they're a Cities of Sigmar, like light cavalry unit. They're a 3-up save, 10 wounds, super wide screen. Nice unit.
And they unlock one of our terrible battle tactics, which says you have to contest an objective outside your territory by a City of Sigmar unit. Not control it, contest it. So you get one Drakespawn Knight on there, you've completed that battle tactic.
Boom, done. It's good stuff. I love that. Sharpshooters, he went for Raptors with 2 mid-size Adjudicator units. Those mid-size Adjudicator units have been surprising me. I'm just saying, like I've been considering them in a lot more lists. They do really well.
They're good. They fill battle line that let you take a Drakespawn Knight unit instead of another Vanquisher.
Yeah, his battle line here, I forgot to mark him out with the little letters to let you know which battle line, but it's just the Judicators and the Fulminators are the only thing that are battle line here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's filled the battle line exactly, and that lets him take the Drakespawn Knights.
Yep. Yeah, and looking at the matchups, Sharpshooters would be great into every single one of these, because the Stormcast Mirror is just about the only time you want to shoot the Stormcast heroes, because you want to be the one controlling translocation. You don't want your opponent to be doing that, and that's where 3 Vanguard Raptors with volley come into play.
Oh yeah. Yep,
and then Gitz after Gitz, man. So Sharpshooters is very, very good into Gitz.
Yeah, I imagine he was able to just take out key heroes. Yeah, that last Gitz list for the 5-0, that was the double reinforced Wigherd list.
Oh boy.
So he definitely had some challenges here, and he was able to overcome them with a well thought out list. Just this is the perfect example of why Stormcast are such high on our tier list usually, is because we're able to put out a list that can just tech exactly to what you need against the meta.
Mm-hmm. Now we can make very good take all comers lists where we don't have a single like horrifically bad matchup. It's all just like somewhere in that like 50 to 60% win rate. While some armies can build lists that go like 70% against some matchups. We sit a little bit lower, but we're consistently doing better against everything.
Mm-hmm. Good job,
Awesome.
man.
Great job, Stark. Okay, we have a 5-0 Soulblight list. This is really exciting because we've been ranking Soulblight as one of the worst armies right now. So it is very, very awesome to see them go 5-0.
Yeah, same event, Sparkle Party Deathmatch over on the West Coast side of things. It's from Jeremy Veysseire. I can never say his name right, but sure. Legion of Blood.
It's Veysseire, but yeah.
Veysseire. Okay, I apologize, Jeremy, in advance. Or I guess not in advance. But yeah, he was running a battle regiment with Neferata, a typical staple of Soulblight. They love their hero hammer because it just they kind of need it. Fading Vigor, is Fading Vigor the -1 to be wounded? Or no, -1 to wound on an enemy unit?
Sounds right.
I think
or
that
is
was
that the -1 attack spell. Do they have that?
I think it was -1 to wound. But it's
Probably.
a defensive spell. It's a defensive debuff. You've got 2 units of Death Rattle Skeletons filling out the battle line, being annoying and efficient. Corpse Cart that's the actual -1 to wound aura. And so that's just a really good unit to have in general. Something that even the what is it? The Regiments of Renown, right, has the Corpse Cart in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's something that
Correct.
people have been considering. The Galatian Command Battalion has a Vampire Lord with 10 Graveguard. Graveguard can actually hit. Oh, thank you, Robert Molshine. Let us know it is -1 attacks. I remember it's a really good debuff. I never let it go off because it's a bad bad thing to have happen. Yeah, and melee only. Yep. But yeah, Vampire Lord with Graveguard just lets them, do some more damage if they're still around. Levitate is always a good one. I know, Paul, you love talking about Levitate and Blood Knights.
It's so good, man. Levitate on Cavalry is legit good, and like people would take it if it didn't have a cast value of 8, I think, and it has a cast value of 8 because it's so good. Like flying is amazing in this game.
It's a arcane attuned Vampire Lord, so I think that gives them the +1 to cast.
I think it's like a +2 on the first spell they cast.
+2 on the first one. That's what it was.
It's +2 for a foot hero, +1 on the zombie dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then Master Magic, of course, you're re-rolling that, so 6 up re-rolling, easy money. Luca Vi is the Mother of Nightmares. I don't actually remember which hero that is.
She's the named.
She's the Vengorian Lord. She's the half
Vengorian?
vampire, half like weird creature thing.
I have not seen that unit for a long time on the table.
I've
Wow.
never seen the special character on the table, not once.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one.
I honestly don't know what she does. I was waiting for the new book.
That's something I wasn't expecting. Double units of Black Knights to fill out the battle line. They're great screens. People started using them more because of the last season, because of the GV issues.
Mm-hmm.
But because of using them again, people are like, wait a minute, these are actually kind of decent. So I've definitely seen them in more Soulblight lists. And then 10 Blood Knights is just a solid, hammer to have around.
5-man cavalry squads are so good for screening. This is like I always use Saurus Knights as my battle line in Seraphon. Even when like skinks were like 60 points, I would still pay extra points just to have a super wide Seraphon screen with the knights.
So one of the big concepts for this list is that the Vengorian Lord gives you reduces your rend by 1. Then you have the -1 to wound bubble from the Corpse Card. Then you have the -1 tack a spell for Fading Vigor, and Neferata puts her ethereal spell on the 10 block of Blood Knights. So now they're 2-up ethereal, ignoring all rend, and your other melee threat in that unit is -1 attack, -1 to wound, -1 rend. And the Graveguard just mows stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert's pointing out the Luca Vi has a half charge bubble. That's pretty strong.
She does.
That's really good.
Oh,
We've been overlooking that. That's really good.
Yeah, it's
wow.
super good. It's a very like traditional Jeremy control list.
Is she just really expensive? Is that what it is?
Very interesting.
Yeah, she just like she doesn't do enough damage, but once you get all the buffs up, Soulblight is very buff dependent.
Oh, she's
so like if you're
280.
Yeah. And like if your spells fail, which something Teclis and Tzeentch can do, your list just dies. Like there's nothing you can do. Like this list is like if all my buffs are up, I will destroy any like midfield melee army.
It's all spell dependent though.
Yeah, Jeremy didn't face Tzeentch or
any shooting really, right? Looking at the matchups, it's like Flesh Eaters are melee, Fire Slayers are melee, Ogres are
very melee.
Mostly melee, let's say.
Yeah.
Gitz are melee.
If I remember correctly, I don't believe there was a single Tzeentch army at the event, and I want to say there was only 1 or 2 Lumineth lists total.
Wow, that's crazy. That Lumineth
was all Boulderhead. Yeah, Ogre's list was no Iron Blasters.
Lumineth should probably be a lot more popular. It's weird that it's such a low play rate this past month.
Well, this will make you go crazy. So the half charge spell that she has, it says if successfully cast, charge rolls for enemy units within 12 are halved until your next hero phase. Is this an aura or a pulse?
You know my answer to that. Why are you starting this?
Oh man.
I bet you, and I don't like not to like rag on Jerry, but like there are people who would play this as an aura, and that's what will make this model really, really good.
Yeah, you just move into charging range.
Yep.
Something that could be discussed.
Yep.
But
another podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, Robert Molshan's pointing out. I didn't know Black Knights had impact hits. I just hadn't seen them too much.
2 up D3, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Because they basically do 0 damage in melee. That's all they do.
Seems neato, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, congrats, Jeremy. That's an awesome list. It's well thought out. A lot like Stark's list. They do a lot of good. I know they talk a lot, and they do a lot of good brewing over there.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff, guys.
Sweet. Yeah, can't wait to see what Soulblight turns into. It's officially been announced, right? Pre-orders for the book go up on the 8th, so can't wait to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
If it's interesting enough, we might even do a review. Just add another list, another video to the list.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
All right.
This one, Mrigank, you can take this one, buddy, because there's something familiar about this Petrifex Elite list.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember this list. It's been a while.
I'll be right back.
Right, so I was kind of bored for a bit. I didn't want to play Stormcast, and there was this tournament it was sort of like a weird team tournament, where we weren't in teams, but like you couldn't play against members of your club unless like you were in the top like bracket and there was no one else to fight. So essentially I was like, okay, what's the field consist of right now? And it was essentially a lot of destruction, a lot of Slaves of Darkness, and some Lumineth. And I was like, okay, well, what army can I pick that can like effectively mitigate its weakness? And I sort of had all these models painted and ready. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's try OBR. And weirdly enough, so the list essentially revolves around 2 units of Stalkers. They're incredibly tough. You're talking about 24 wounds, 4 up save, reducing a rend. You can Mystic Shield them for a 3 up, and in combat they're so versatile because what you can do is on offense you can increase their rend and damage by 1, and then you can use the Petrifex command ability to increase their rend even further. So the big swords hit on rend 4, the small swords hit on rend 3. And when people charge you, you can just reroll saves, which is insanely good in a meta that has effectively got rid of reroll saves. To be able to reduce someone's rend and reroll saves means your guys are almost always going to survive, even against stuff that has like -2, sometimes -3 rend. And the list then basically sort of forgoes Archon because magic domination from Tzeentch and like Teclis will effectively shut him down. So you'll basically go for the heroic action on your Bone Shaper or Soul Mason to guarantee the one spell that you need, which most likely will be Bone Tide Shrieker most of the time. And the Leech Cavalos is then backing up 2 catapults. And why did I pick catapults? Well, the no rend ammunition may make them seem bad, but it's the special ammunition you pick it for. And the special ammunition on both catapults that can be fired once per game is the first ammunition is you pick a unit within range. The models of that unit don't have to be within range, just one model from that unit. You roll the number of dice equal to the number of models in the unit. Any dice you roll that is equal to or above their unmodified bravery characteristic, it slays a model. So they don't get a ward save past this. So if you fight like a Gitz list that has like bravery 3 or bravery 4 across the board, you can wipe the floor with them.
Yeah, because it kills the model, right? Not they don't get to pick. So yeah, you can break coherency with shooting, which is so good.
No. So on the bravery ammunition, they get to pick which models.
Oh, okay.
Right. But you combine that with the Bone Tide Shrieker, and suddenly they've lost a bunch of models, and they can't Inspiring Presence. And
Shrieker's basically Horrorghast, right?
Yes, Horrorghast, but it also cuts down on rally. It doesn't let you rally within 12. And it gives all Ossiarch Bonereapers +1 to hit if you're within 12 of it.
Yeah, and it can't get unbound, which is such a strong ability. I freaking love that heroic action.
Yep, it's the one thing that, that's how, because I faced Lumineth round 1, and that's the only thing I would use to do heroic actions on all the time. It was either heroic willpower or necromantic mastery. The second ammunition on the crawler is you pick a model within range. It can be a model within a unit or just like a hero if you can target it past the GC rule if they somehow forgot. You roll 2d6, and if you roll equal to or above their wound characteristic, it's just immediately slain. You have a -3 to this rule when your Mortek Crawler is at full health, so if they actually waste time trying to cut down on 12 wounds on the Mortek Crawler and it's down to like its last bracket, do not heal it, because that makes the model sniping ammunition even better, and you can snipe like models that are like way past your normal range, because it gives you a +3 to that roll then, when it's on its like last 2 brackets.
Or like really important models, right? In certain units.
Yeah, so like what I did like against Lumineth turn 1, he took the turn, put up a ward save, did some damage to my crawlers. I'm like, okay, I'll just heal up everything using Reckoned Constructs and the Bone Shaper. I'm going to use my special ammunition and snipe the Sentinel Wardens, the ones that cast spells or the 5-up Empower. And after that, he didn't have Empower for the rest of the game. And then I essentially just got the double on him. Stalkers moved 9 inches because of Relentless Advance, and Total Eclipse does not affect us because it's Relentless Discipline points. They charged, they did their Ren thing, and I just cut him down. There was no way he could deal with all the bodies. The one thing I really like about Stalkers too, sorry, not Stalkers, Crawlers, is that their base is huge. It is an absolutely giga base that like if two of these are sitting on an objective, your opponent is not getting anywhere near that objective. You can effectively just blockade space off with these things. And if they want to waste time trying to kill this thing, I'm more than happy to let them do it.
Because the rest of your list is doing its job. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
hilarious. Just taking out the Sentinel hero so they can't empower themselves. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Rally the one guy? Just try to roll
Yeah.
6 or
Yeah, I'm
something?
like, cool. I'm okay with you spending a CP to get one guy back, and that cuts down on their unleash hell efficiency because that's really what I was afraid of.
Mhm.
And then I really like Kala's Death Riders here because this list is, although it can be like faster than you would think, it's not that fast. So Kavalos is like that one thing that can go out and give me Desecrate. Against Skaven, it actually helped me win because he deployed his Warp Lightning Cannons all the way at the front to try to target my crawlers. I took the first turn, Kavalos moved 15 inches, their banner gives them +1 a charge. I charged the Kavalos, took out one cannon, and then the second one when I was fighting. And so having that bit of reach to like perform flanking maneuvers is just it's just a really, really cool ability. Yeah, Soul Mason to reroll ones, Bone Shaper to heal, Leech for the +1 attack on crawlers if I need it, or on stalkers if I need it. But yeah, so that's the list.
That's
Awesome.
hilarious. Like,
This
even
this
if
is-
you just take up the whole shooting phase of those Warpfire cannons for just one turn, like that's still a lot of
Yeah,
value.
and the thing is, like, people always target the crawlers because they're extremely afraid of that 5 damage attack or the bravery ammunition. And that's actually a good thing for this list because I don't know if you've seen this, but none of the stuff in this list other than Mortec crawlers, sorry, other than Mortec Guard, come back. Like, once you kill the stalkers, they're gone.
They're gone, yeah.
Right? Like if you kill like 3 stalkers, I am down 3 stalkers. I'm not getting them back through rally or anything else. So a lot of people fall into the trap of, oh, I have to kill the crawlers as soon as possible, and that lets my stalkers get to you. And that's the mistake like the majority of my opponents I think made. The ogre's opponent tried to shoot my crawlers off. The city's opponent tried to put a Kronspan in the middle, which I just put Mystic Shield on Mortec Guard, just tanked that for like 3 turns. So like, do not care. Yeah, so and the Gloomspite list, it was a good opponent, Sean Kehoe. He's a really good Gitz player. He's always been playing Gitz for like the last like 4 years that I've known him. But he just had no answer to the catapults because I just removed a block of 60 grots to like 40 grots out of it, like turn 1. Then I took the other bravery ammunition, just removed a bunch of Boeing Grart Bounders, and put Bone Tide Shrieker right in the middle. So like both of those ran away, and it was a mission where he couldn't afford to keep taking the double because that removed the objectives on his side. So that's eventually that won't be the game against Gitz.
I am really looking forward to doing a full review of this new Ossiarch book. This is a great like final hurrah for the 2nd edition book too. This list, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's bomb.
yeah, definitely.
So are you back to Stormcast? Did you get it out of your system?
Yeah, I got it on myself. Although the new OBR book just got announced, so like, so it's tough. But yeah, like, but I will be playing, I think, a version of Stark Pister's list, but I'm more favorable to not playing the Galatian command combo. I might just try like 4 Fulminators and 2 Evocators on Draklines. Sorry, 3 Evocators on
do 10
Draklines.
Retributors, man. I'm telling you, 10 Rets slap. They're so good.
10 Rets are they're pretty good. Their damage is honestly really freaking good.
Yep.
Yeah, they're interesting.
Well,
I feel so nervous taking no Aether Wings or like splitting up my shooting. I'm like, how is he just okay with shooting on 3s? I want to shoot on 2s. I don't know how he does it, but hey, man,
4s if you're
if it
trying to
works, it
snipe
works.
characters, right? Trying to get through
I
lookouts.
know. Yeah, I have no idea, man. But hey, good on Stark for making that work.
All right. How many more lists do we have? Is this the last one?
We have one more after this one.
Okay, but this is a good
2
one.
more, so
This is a real good one.
yeah, we have Kaleb and then another list.
And if you don't, man, this if you don't know what this list is doing, this does not look like a good list. But this is an absolutely disgusting list that I would hate to play against every single day, no matter what list I was playing. Even if I teched into anti-magic, I would hate to play this. But anyway, Dan, break it down.
Yeah, so it's Disciples of Tzeentch, our friend Kaleb. We talked about his brother earlier on Ironjawz. They're both extremely good players. I have been for a very long time. And Kaleb is, like I said, guest starring on a How to Counter Tzeentch video coming to you soon enough. And he is so knowledgeable about this army. Hearing him talk about it, it's awesome. Can't wait to get to it. But we'll break this one down kind of quickly. Ogor Thaumaturge, Arcane Sacrifice, Arcane Tome, Arcane Suggestion, Lord of Change, with the Nine-Eyed Tome, Ghost Mist, Curseling, Eye of Tzeentch, which comes to the future, and Tunnel Master. Seems like a pretty normal, okay, cool, 3 heroes and a command entourage. He went for an extra artifact. That's probably fine, because he took Tome and the Nine-Eyed Tome. Battle Regiment with a Magister, the Shield of Faith, and, Acolytes, usual. And then he's got a Kronspine, and you're like, wait a minute, so Tzeentch still running the Kronspine. And you look back up at the Magister, and it's like, oh no. So what this list wants to do is make this Kronspine go wild immediately. Off the bat, you can make the Magister off itself by doubling the dice, and the Kronspine will then immediately go wild. And he can do this, very easily. The Kronspine already brings great bonuses because of the of what it does, but it's the hammer of this army. Even better than that, though, is you make sure to cast a spell, an endless spell after that, to go ahead and have the Kronspine go and eat it. So now you have a level 3 Kronspine on turn 1.
Oh, it's better than that. Because not only, so what you do is you cast the spell portal, you cast a spell through the portal, and then you cast the Magister's second spell, and then the Magister dies because you can guarantee the spell being a double through Destiny dice. Because when you roll 2 dice, you'll have at least 1 double. It doesn't matter what the double is. And then the Kronspine goes wild. It can now run in charge. So it runs 6 towards the other end of the spell portal. It devours the spell portal with a +2 on the roll. So it'll be rolling a 4 to devour it. And then you actually finish your charge like 3.1 inches away from enemies. And then you just, because charged, you just pile into combat. It gets around all the strike first shenanigans. It gets around anything that happens at the start of the combat phase. And then you just tie down as much as possible with a 10-inch no retreat aura. Or 12 inch because it's powered up to rank to level 3. It's so gross. That it's got the burning sigil that he's going to put down at the start of the game. So if you start within 27 inches, you're just not going to be able to move. You'll be dealing with chaos spawn instead. So it forces you super far back. Or if you're a melee army, you just can't charge from turn 1. The Thaumaturge adding 9 inches through Arcane Sacrifice can launch that even further if he chooses to just not cast the spell at the start of the game. He can save it and then cast it at the top of 1. There's so many possibilities in this list.
Yep.
It's a nightmare to play against, honestly. Even the 10 Zangors, they don't look scary. That's a crazy melee hammer. That's like 50 attacks, which will be on like 3s and 2s, if 3s and 4s maybe, 3s and 3s. But it can go up to like Ren 3 on that pretty easily through Arcane Suggestion and the Purple Sun and all these things. Like those Zangors will bite through a save stack unit of Fulminators. It's everything in this list is such a threat. It's crazy. Really, really, really good list.
Yeah, extremely well thought out. Gosh, like, what do you even do against this list?
You watch our How to Counter Tzeentch video, which is coming soon, and then I'll tell you exactly what you need to know to try to have a chance.
I'll be honest, our How to Counter Tzeentch will be really, really good. But there's not much you can do because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there's a lot of backup plans that this list has. I think this list, the overall problem is it's probably the most efficient list in the game. It has a very high skill ceiling. Like Kaleb is obviously the best Tzeentch player in the world in my opinion. But there's not a lot anyone can do against this list. And I think that just comes down to how efficient this list is and how brutally effective the Kronspine is in this list alone.
Yeah, go get a beer. That's your answer.
If you're playing Khorne, you really hope you match into this. That would be the best. Just blood type for days. But no, we will on our How to Counter Tzeentch video. We actually have Mr. Walters himself coming on to discuss what he's worried about, what he's trying to do, and then how you can potentially beat it. So that's going to be a fantastic video, and hopefully the real battle scroll coming sometime in the next few weeks won't make it all invalid.
Well, hopefully it's due next Thursday, from what we heard, right?
Something like that, yeah. Sometime this week, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. It's still extremely good list. You can beat this list. It's not unbeatable. Like Rob's talking about in the chat, you can stop the endless spell. You can stop a couple things that help this list, but it's still just extremely efficient list for sure.
You need to know exactly what you have to do at every single step of the decision making process, and then it still comes down to dice rolls. And if you make a mistake along the way, he will capitalize on it and punish you severely. And there's so many traps. There's so many traps that you can get stuck in here. The Kronspine, the Sigil, the Zangors charging you out of nowhere, summoning demons in with like after a 6-inch run, the Curseling teleporting behind you and doing all kinds of shenanigans. There's a lot going on in this list. The Curseling,
it's very frustrating to play. Like I think, and yeah, especially like the Burning Sigil, because you have to make sure all units are 5.5 inches from every unit at all times. So in order to not get trapped by a spawn, and it just makes play against this very frustrating and like very like geometric and exhausting. I would say
it's a super like fun accomplishment if you're really like high level minded player, you really like challenging lists. That would be fun. For most players, this would just be like just be terrible experience.
It'd be either you don't know how good this list is and you get wrecked without knowing how badly you got wrecked, or it's like pulling teeth playing against this list.
There's like a curve. It's like the amount of fun you have versus how much you know about this list. Like, you know nothing, you're having a great time because you lose quick and you can move on to the next round. But the more you know, the less fun you have until you finally hit like 95% knowledge, and then you start to tick up a little bit, and then it's fun again.
I will say Rob's not wrong in the sense that you can stop. Like I said, you could stop some of the parts of this list. You know, getting the Incarnate stuck on something is 100%. The best way to go is if there's not a great target for him to charge into turn 1, and he's just, you know, taking a combat, and then you can move around the Incarnate, then, you know, more power to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be really tough with how close deployments are. That's bigger issues.
Exactly. You need to know everything from the first deployment of the game. You have to act very meticulously. So, fantastic.
And it is just
fantastic.
The Incarnate controlling space, yeah.
And this there's he went best overall with this list, right? 5-0 and best overall at Adepticon?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
There was a couple 5-0s, but he was best overall.
Very nice.
But Rob had a great Big Wall list there. I'm sorry, Rob, that I didn't get to cover your list for time. He's in the chat talking.
Okay.
Great
That's
list,
same Rob. Okay. Then we've got a Kharadron list, which is very exciting because they got a new book. So I can't wait to see what they do.
Book. Yeah. From Jake Gunning, running. I quite like this style of Kharadron. Running a double frigate list. So he's got 2 battle regiments to go ahead and fit those frigates in. An Arcanite Admiral, Stormcaller and leadership of the Alpha, Sky Wardens, which make up his battle line here in both the battle regiments, and then a set of Engine Riggers again in both the battle regiments, and a frigate shared between both the battle regiments. Running the Great Sky Cannon, of course. That's just the better option, as well as a Gun Hauler. So yeah, I mean, Etheric Navigator. I'm surprised that he's not running the Chemist.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you don't really need it here.
What I've been seeing mostly out of Kharadron is like bridge, 15 Thunderers, and frigates. Right, that's the standard. So this is quite the deviation from that. The Gun Hauler still has a 6-up ward for the other 2 ships, which is nice. The Sky Wardens, are they the ones that repair, or is that the Engine Riggers?
No, Engine Riggers repair. Sky Wardens are the one with the Sky Pike. So if he's running, is he running the Barak, like the name character
Barak's
or whatever?
on. Yep. Oh wait, the
Brock?
No, he's not running.
No, he's not running Brock.
Wow,
no.
So he's running the Sky Wardens as like a melee hammer, and I don't know what Voidstone Orb does. I'll have to look that up.
Voidstone Orb is the auto unbind, isn't it?
Yeah, auto unbind.
Yeah, auto unbind.
Oh wow, and what is Stormcaller?
Stormcaller. Oh man, that's the one I missed. I was about to go. I had the codes pulled up. Let me find out.
Sure.
Stormcaller.
While you look for that, 18 Sky Wardens. He does still have 6 Engine Riggers, so he will be repairing the ships at the end of any phase they take damage. So this is an important thing.
And it's per model, so you can't chip the frigate down. You need to like make sure it's dead in 1 turn.
And what's really good about that ability is that it's at the end of any phase. So like you get shot, you repair immediately before they go into combat. If you just take a bunch of hero phase magic, you repair it immediately before you get shot again in the shooting phase. So like really, really powerful ability.
Sky Wardens are also like really good because they'll have like they're armed with Sky Pike, so they'll have 3 attacks a model, 3s and 3s, -1/2 damage. I think pretty sure you can bump that up to -2. And when they are done with the combat, at the end of the combat phase on a 2-up, they do D3 mortal wounds and they retreat from you. And their movement is like 12, so they'll move pretty far.
And is Barak's on the melee one? +1/+1.
I think it might be. Hold on, I do have the top.
Okay.
Barracks on is yeah, add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for melee weapons.
That's so
Okay.
good in a world of total
charged.
eclipse. Like if you're playing Kharadron list like a normal one, you issue so many commands and you get hit by a total eclipse. Like it's just over. It's so bad for you.
So annoying, right?
But yeah, +1/+1 that doesn't require a command to get around. There's also a lot of -1 hit, -1 wound stuff in the game now,
There's a lot more.
increasingly, especially Slanesh.
So- Yeah. Stormcaller lets you reroll the Navigator's ability. So the Navigator's ability to go ahead and
Increase or
reroll-
decrease movement. Yep.
Yeah, increase or decrease
Yeah, on a
movement.
1, oh yeah, so he rolls 6 dice. On a 1, he halves something within 30, and on a 6, he increases the movement of your guys by like 3, I think.
What an unnecessarily high amount of dice rolling for that roll.
He makes a Sky Vessel move, actually, in the hero phase.
Okay.
With that one.
Why can't it just be like,
yeah.
you get both effects, here you go.
Yeah, it's
too much
kind
dice
of weird.
Anyway.
Yeah, and the fact that you have to take Stormcaller to reroll that is a little odd. But yeah, I really like the frigates. I think the frigates are kind of the way to go with Kharadron.
It sure feels
Kinda
that
like
way.
them on the
But
Ironclad.
for cost wise, even if you don't go like the Skywarden route, you go like Thunderers, frigates seem to be the best way to load stuff into them. Gun haulers are also really good though. I really like gun haulers. Mrigank, did you ever run that list with the gun haulers in it? That was your Fire Slayers list, right?
Yeah, my
you
first
ran
list
that.
was ran 2 gun haulers for 170. It's basically a slightly smaller base than a chariot, but you have a 12-inch move, 16 once per game. You can drop bombs on people if you
Yeah.
move over them. 4 dice for ups or more wounds. It's got 6 shots at 12 inches at like 3s and 3s -1/2 damage, or 2 shots at 24 inches, 4s and 2s -2 D3 +1 damage. So it's pretty good, pretty versatile unit.
And
Yep.
Kazarol is right. He did take the so the gun hauler took the collapsible compartments. Basically lets him put 6 Skyfarer units in the gun hauler, which
Oh,
normally
sick.
you can't do. Yeah, so that's a really cool tech as well. Deploy them in there and get everything, in boats and across the board.
I gotta say, Jake Gunning has the perfect name to play Kharadron.
Yeah, and pretty decent matchups here. Sylvaneth,
Yep.
Cruel Boys, which I'm sure, he was like, oh, you're not going to shoot me so much with grit and blades, right? And
You
then,
just
no,
comes
I'm
in
going to get up
melees
close. Slaves to Darkness. I'm curious, like, if he was able to. What kind of Slaves to Darkness list was this? Let's see.
Were the pikes are Ren 2? Or is that the saws that I'm thinking of?
No, pikes are in 1.
1, okay. So slaves could be tough, right? It's an armor matchup.
It was grit and blades that you face, and then Slaves to Darkness.
But like they
was
also have like a
Iron
ton
Guard
of
list.
guns too. Like it's just dice, right? It's just they're really taxing your command points. They've got grapnel launchers on them, like the Skywardens do. They got 2 of them, so they're 4s and 3s, -3 D3 damage. If they
Ooh,
have
yeah.
drill launchers or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll chew through eventually.
You said it was a Varangard list?
Yeah, it was a Varangard list. Like literally Varangard spam straight.
Oh yeah, I can see
three
that
blocks
because with
turn.
Voidstorm Orb, you just deny the Mystic Shield and then you just blow them off the table.
Yeah. They were Mark of Chaos Corn as well, so easier to kill.
Not increasing the rend on his shooting though. Insane.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what else comes out of Kharadron. The new book is really good.
It's really freaking good. Yeah.
Base Star of the Cane, typical Marathi the Bow Snakes list. This one took Tree Revenants for some teleporting shenanigans.
Mhm.
But otherwise pretty typical.
Round 5 Sons of Behemoth. How? That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. It was a great Sons of Behemoth list because it had all the names. All of his stuff was named. It's
Nice.
great. I was reading the list and I'm like, oh, it's a bit of a headache to like parse through. But it was like Gatebreaker, Beast Stomper, War Stomper, and 3 units of Man Crusher singles.
Worth it. Worth the trouble. Now, Sons of Behemoth are like the best army to face in round 5 because it's like last boss music starts playing and then like 4 of these guys stomp up. That's so cool. Okay.
But yeah, melee Kharadron, right? Like this is super hype to go 5-0.
Super
That's
elite.
awesome.
It's super elite army, 99 wounds. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's jump into statistics.
Oh yeah.
This is the best. I love numbers. So we're looking here at the current win rate, and these stats have been provided by our good friends at wohammer.com. They do excellent analysis, and they have given us a whole steaming pile of stats that we can take a look at. Let's take a look at the outliers on this chart first. The new Kharadron obviously are doing very well, but that's a sample size of 17 games.
Yeah.
That's not reliable at all. Old Beasts of Chaos, 63% win rate. We know how busted Old Beasts of Chaos was. That's not surprising anyone. Yeah, so I think we can disregard those 2 data points. They're interesting. The new Kharadron, we'll see how they shake out, but I think for now 17 is just not enough data for us to have a meaningful discussion about it. But how about Big Wah at 58%?
I mean, it's only 22 games, but like I just talked about, Rob's in the chat. Rob just went 5-0 at Adepticon with Big Wah. And Big Wah has just some really neat build paths that they can go. And build
Is it just the Wargogs? The Wargogs just killing you because you can't shoot them anymore?
I mean, kind of. Yeah, the Wargog. I mean, the Wargog went up the last Battlescroll, I think, too, as a result.
I was thinking of in our April Fool's
knew.
video putting in a thing about buffing the Wargog because he wasn't good enough, and that just didn't make the cut for the final script.
Yeah. Rob's list was really cool. Yeah, Rob with the big wah in the chat. Thanks, man. Our boys, Wargruntas, both boys. Squigherd. Oh man, come on, dude. You read Squigherd? Okay.
Oh, that's why.
And Scragrot. Okay, well, you know.
At that point, it's basically another Gitz list.
He gets good points though for running Gobsprak. Which, dude, Gobsprak in Big Wah though is very popular. But yeah, Big Wah is kind of interesting. It's just very low play rate, so it's hard to like. It's a 58%, but it's still tough to put too much weight on it.
All right. Well, after that, we have no surprises at all in the next like 4, right? Lumineth, Tzeentch, Gitz, Ogres are all crushing the meta right now. Even though I think we saw like maybe one list as an opponent in our things here for against Lumineth. So they don't seem as popular as some other armies. But look, 124 players, that's a huge sample size. 140.
It is.
148 for the Ogres. Like these are good sample sizes. Yeah, players, not games, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are significant enough sample sizes that we can talk about them. And yeah, they're too strong.
I specifically avoided adding Lumineth and Gitz lists into our list that we reviewed just because we reviewed so many. The last.
I mean, Lumineth is everyone's doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's like, is it 40 or is it 60 Sentinels? You pick. Mostly 40 with tech.
How many wind charges did you take? The base year. I know what the base year list is. How many
you took
wind
5 or
charges
10.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And then Gitz, it's like, dude, did you run Squickherds or Trog? Trog's probably a little less popular, just a little bit. But still very good. Squickherd obviously carrying.
Well, imagine how high Gitz would be right now if Lumineth weren't one of the other dominating armies, because Lumineth really do a good job shutting down Gitz. If Lumineth weren't the top of the meta, Gitz would probably be like 59-60% win rate.
Yeah,
it's extremely efficient. It's a little too efficient. That's really what it's coming down to.
And let's be fair, it's not Lumineth, it's Helon that's the problem.
Yeah,
I've played a lot of matches against Alumna and Zytrek, and they're fine. They feel fine.
Yeah, Teclis is not fun to play against, but the rest of the army is frankly weak. Like, it's too weak. I think they should nerf Teclis and buff everything else. And nerf Helon, too. It's too many shots.
I think we can probably expect Lumineth to get a nerf as well as Gitz. Ogres is sitting pretty high for 148. They're a very popular army.
Well,
148 players.
Ogres were slipping a bit. In our last video, Ogres were going down a bit, and I think it's the transition away from Underguts that is giving them all the success right now.
Yeah, Iron Blasters are great, but with the points increase, it helped take the edge off.
It's the lack of sharpshooters, man. That's what it is. Like the fact that Iron Blasters can't shoot the Squig boss, they can't shoot all these key heroes. Tactically, the Underguts just can't play out these games properly. Whereas if you just spam a bunch of big meaty boys on Wolfback or whatever, then you'll do just fine. You don't care about sharpshooters.
Yeah, Ogres are actually pretty efficient for their points too. They're just slipping on their radar because Underguts, A, like you said, can't shoot the foot heroes, and B, what Ogres have pivoted into is taking Kragnos because their charge mortals actually have that multiplicative bonus because of Kragnos is 3d6 charge. So
I really hope they nerf charge mortals in 4th, man. I just hate them as a concept. They're too impactful. But anyway.
It's pretty annoying. Or at least make them a flat thing, where you're like some of the older charge mortals in the older books are like, roll 2d3 or whatever.
Yeah. So Sylvaneth are consistently top 5 throughout all of our videos. Yeah. And I'm personally not seeing why. They're good, but they're not top 5 good. Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so it's not like
here's why.
4-1 or 3. It's a lot of 3-2 lists, maybe.
It's quite a few
No,
4-1s as well.
no, they've got wins too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The problem with Sylvaneth is they're sometimes not consistent enough to get to 5-0 because there's a lot of 2-ups and 3-ups in that army. But like 2-up for Spitestorm to go off, 3-up for your Tree Lord fight last thing to go off. When this army goes off, and you'll notice with the common thing among a lot of the like ogres, I guess you could say Gloomspite Gitz in a way, and even like they don't have screens. Like the ogres meaty list does not take screens. It is just meat. And so when you have that, and when you have 6 Karnats fighting you that can just strike and fade away, that's really, really good. It's like shooting, and like they don't have to risk any of their melee. They can keep doing the mortal wounds from the spell bomb and affecting all your main units. And their melee is something you can't hurt unless you have like high amounts of range damage. So
Seekers reviving hunters seems really good against armies that are trying to do like precise damage, like Tzeentch and Lumineth.
Seekers can revive Karnat too, unless
that's what I'm saying. They revive
that's
Karnat
what he's
hunters.
talking about. Yeah, Karnat hunters.
And Tree Lords just wreck infantry. That fight last heroic. The stomp is so good. Good lord.
Yeah, so you pull back near a Tree Lord, in like near some Awakened Wildwood or something, and it's like, okay, if you come to fight me, I'll just make you stomp and I'll kill you. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm totally biased, right? Because I'm mainly playing Stormcast, and I feel like that's always feeling good into Sylvaneth because we have disposable screens. We've got good shooting to contest their stuff. If they poke out to shoot, then they get shot back. We've got unbinds to get rid of key spells. Like we've got tools to deal with Sylvaneth. So it's probably my bias that's stopping me from seeing what makes them so good. Into other matchups, they probably look a lot better.
Yeah. It's basically they're just really good at wiping stuff from Gitz ogres. Lumineth, I would say they're probably not good against because Lumineth can just like shut down their magic and shoot, which is why which is why they're probably not winning. But like they're really good into mostly everything else. Now, while New KO shows up, I think they're bad into New KO. I think Beast of Chaos has a lot of play against them because Beast of Chaos has the reach to hit them like we do. Because Bulgors are just annihilators, but better in a way.
Well, yeah, Beast of Chaos can just show up next to them too, which is something they do not like.
Yep. Also, they don't like board edge heroic actions because all the heroes effectively like to just stay in the back of the edge of the board.
Yep. Well, they want to be away from all the action.
Well, let's talk about new beasts, because they're a super weird army to try to figure out. What are they doing right now? Is it just Bulgor spam? Is it like Ungor Raiders off the table shooting you? What exactly are beasts doing right now?
They're doing 3 things from what I've seen. They're doing, like 60 to 80 Ungors just shooting stuff or trying to with a triumph. They're doing I'll take a bunch of Gors. I'll take Bulgors, like 6 Bulgors with a Doom Bull. I'll try to do a 5-up rollable charge into you, annihilate you with mortals, and then fight like annihilators that have mortal wounds on 6s, like 3 mortal wounds on 6s, and just try to get double and just roll your line that way. Gors are there to charge into you and make you fight last. So that's their plan. It's basically, if you're near the board edge, I'm gonna hurt you, and if you are not, then I'll deep strike there and try to wreck you and just roll up your flank.
Interesting.
And that gets a lot of people because people haven't played against that kind of null deploy army for a while. Stormcast is like one thing, maybe deep strikes at a time and for melee combat, but not like a bunch of things that can have a 7-inch or 8-inch rollable charge or something.
And with like a +2 to charge,
And it feels like people are pretty light on screens these days, like to the point where you can't fully wrap your army around screens. Like you're gonna have a weak side.
Yeah, I think Lumineth Castle can screen pretty well because Teclis is such a huge base, and then you can use wind charges to screen if you have to. Because as long as your Sentinels live, you're probably fine. Tzeentch doesn't care because they just got so many disposable units. It's the heroes they have to protect, so they don't care if Acolytes die, and they have a Kron Spine, and that's really the weakness of Beast of Chaos. They can't deal with the Kron Spine. But other than that, I think one more reason why the Kron Spine needs to be yeeted, I think. But yeah,
it's okay. It's just Tzeentch that it's a problem, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Slaanesh might play it, so.
Sons of Behemoth consistently going, 50 to 55%. They're always in that upper 50%. Or let's say I'm trying to get across. It's not the lower balance bracket, which is 45 to 50. They're in the upper balance bracket, which is 50 to 55. Is it a lot of 3-2s still? I guess we'll see in the next couple slides.
Yeah, let's see the next slides. We'll put a bit more information, but overall, I mean, you still got a fat middle. Flesh Eater Courts sticking in the middle. They're pretty decently with 46 results. I think more people have seen some of these lists coming out with, between the ghouls, the horrors.
Hmm.
There's a lot of good stuff coming out of Flesh Eater Courts as far as like a decent list. It's not, you know, stratospheric S tier rise or anything, but it's really good. It's awesome to have an army like that see some fresh air, like some fresh like breath of play. Fire Slayers, obviously, Slaves of Darkness, Daughters of Cain, just very consistent armies. Bonereapers, someone may have contributed a lot out of those 35. But yeah, Bonereapers, Idoneth, just a very techie army, but not necessarily as popular. Us, of course, holding it down at 47%, just taking nerf after nerf.
Remember, always
It's
add
fine.
5% to Stormcast, and that's what we're really at.
Yeah, we're not actually at 47%. We're really like 52. Night Haunt still relatively popular at 112 players, but not nearly as good as we thought they were going to be. And
No.
that's a trend we're consistently seeing. Is
I
they're
think it's
just
because they're
not as
bad into
tank.
the top field. Like they're really bad into like ogres because of the charge mortals. They're really bad into
Sure.
Lumineth because of the one damage. The
Well,
mortal wound crap.
I'm not sure what Nighthaunt are good into.
They're good into things like the thing is like Nighthaunt is an army like it's like Idoneth, right? It's like you can't double it. But the problem is because they lost the Galatian veteran seasonal rule, they can't be one drop anymore, and that hurts them. So previously they could be one drop, they could get the double on you and wreck you, but now ogres will outdrop Nighthaunt. So if ogres gets the double on a Nighthaunt army, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's causing like a seasonal shift in their win rate, I
But
think.
it seems like every army just has the tools to deal with Nighthaunt.
Yeah,
It's the elf problem, right? It's like you can't be anything other than a battle regiment or like the lowest drops possible.
Okay.
That's basically it.
yeah, they need to be able to control their tempo a little more because they're not that fast. Like we talked about in our How to Counter Nighthaunt video, is they're not really that fast. Like they seem like they'd be able to get to you 8-inch move scenes fast
Well,
across the army,
the
but
other thing is
not a
they
lot of
haven't really
tricks.
innovated past the Blade Geists yet. Like everyone is still trying the list from last season, but just with a different battalion configuration. I think maybe there is a Nighthaunt list that runs a bunch of different tools now. Now that
Yeah.
the season has changed a little, but I think
Yeah.
that hasn't really been experimented with.
Maybe you
We can
go.
check in with Alex again because
Maybe
Yeah,
you
maybe we
still-
can call up Alex
Oh.
and see like, hey, what are you working with right now?
Maybe it's
But he
still
might be
Scarlet
excited
Doom,
about Soulblight.
but you pivot into like Olander so that you have better range
that's what
for
I've
power
been
projection.
seeing. The
Mhm.
Night Hunt list, yeah, I've definitely been starting to use like Olander and
Like
that one
Nor,
list we
maybe,
saw.
more Hero Hammer.
Yeah, more Hero Hammer, which is what Alex was talking about at the end of our How to Counter Night Hunt video. He's talking about how we're gonna have to they're gonna have to transition as the season progresses and they lose like GV and they didn't lose it, but they did. It's not as good as it used to be because of the loss of momentum or control of the
Yeah.
momentum.
I've played Night Haunt in every event I've been to for the last couple of months, and what I've seen is there's been a pivot away from the charge mortals, and they're taking like Olander and stuff like that. But then the army just doesn't have the damage output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a low damage army. That's something we've mentioned in our review is that it's not the highest damage output.
Yeah, it's efficient damage with low damage.
And once
Yeah.
once veterans is gone, let's assume that it's gone just for the sake of discussion. We don't know if it is. But if they get
What
rid of
does it even
veterans, then I don't know how the army does damage at all because Blade Guys are the good
Right.
damage in the army, and they're not good enough right now. Do they pivot into Grimghast Reapers like 2x30 and then just tank everything for days? They finally go into that like Alpha
Yeah.
Strike style with Allrack, the Drowner.
So
They
that's what
ally in the Soulblight Regiment of Renown, and they try to
Yeah,
cut
the
down on your
regiment.
wound rolls and ward saves.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I think that's what it's going to end up being because that's what I've played is the big bricks where you're just like tons of wounds that are on an ethereal 4-up save, but they don't hit back. They don't hit hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Heathen Knights of Slaanesh, that's the old book,
That's
right?
the old book.
Small sample
Soulblight-
size, old book. Nothing really to say there. Soulblight, holding it steady at 47.
Yep. Skaven not doing as well as I thought they would.
Nope.
Pearl
I
Boys-
I took you guys at your word that Skaven were an A-tier army, and I think it might be time to change that.
So no.
Yeah,
So
we'll
so
get
there's
to
a
the tier
difference
list.
between an A-tier army, but is it an A-tier army? What kind of players are most likely to play it? And this, I think, was covered on Warhammer Weekly.
Okay.
The problem with Skaven is the people who collect it are mostly Johnnies. So, the psychographic profiles, it's like Timmy, Johnny, Spike. Skaven is a very Johnny army. Like it's like Stormcast in a way that people collect it because there's lots of different models. They look cool. There's different themes, etc.
So people
But
aren't building it to the best of its potential.
yes. There's a few Skaven lists that I think Carl Stokes, the guy over here who played KO with me at the tournament, he also plays Skaven, and his some of his lists are actually scary, like the stuff that he's come up with. Um, and like the Skaven player that I faced, he was I think 4-0 before I fought him. Um, or 3-0, sorry, before I fought him. So and he went I think 4-1. So clearly the list works.
Yeah.
It's played by a lot of people trying to run like a lot of different things, trying to beef few melee units out. But I think
Sounds familiar.
Goods,
Yeah,
it's
right.
it's Skaven is in the same spot as us. It's just got a lot of variation, and the people who play it like playing different variations rather than figuring out some spike combo to take the current meta with.
I could see that. I could see adding like 3 to 4% on the win rate, and that's being more accurate of what it's really doing in the competitive scene.
Cruel Boys is pretty much relying on grinning baits to just hang in there, but
And that's-
everything is just
And that's the best
So
case scenario
fast.
where they fight stuff like Lumineth, which can't shoot into it normally. Like
Or
the
us.
six or us, like we can get around it with
Well, we
transporting
can
with
get there.
translocation and things like that.
Yeah.
Cruel Boys are the most honest Warhammer army they've ever added to AOS.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in their win rate, I think. They have the worst allegiance abilities. Like I'm looking through some of these the other day, and they're like, once per game, 4 up, do a thing. It's like, why? Why are there so many of these?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so
all
bad.
their artifacts and command traits are once per game. It's like what?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, there's probably a Cruel Boys update coming with whatever's leading into 4th edition. So we'll see what happens
hopefully,
there.
yeah, because
Well-
Ironjawz and Bone Splitters are right there with them. Sitting kind of low, man. Orcs are not feeling too great in
Ironjawz is
AOS.
way better than 45%. Ironjawz
Yeah, I
is
think so,
like
too.
it's like a 50% win rate army. It's really good. It's still like the gold standard when you think of like how am I going to play against a melee army? It's how you play against Ironjawz, right? Even Slaves to Darkness, the only thing you consider in Slaves is how am I going to punch through 2-up saves. But Ironjawz is like you that's your training bag for every other army. It's still the standard. And their win rate is probably just because Lumineth, like if you're not playing that specific style we saw earlier with like super high drops, Lumineth really take a lot out of Ironjawz because the Ironjawz 1-drop lists are not great.
Tzeentch too.
Tzeentch is also really
because
bad. Yep.
Umbral Spell Portal and Arcane Suggestion means you effectively aren't getting Mighty Destroyer on 3 things, and that just kills them.
Mm-hmm. And Gitz just
And they don't
eat
have an
everything.
answer to Kronspine, right? Kronspine is awful for Ironjawz.
Mhm. So yeah, I think they're artificially lower than what they ought to be. Ironjawz are a strong army still, which is impressive. First book syndrome is not as bad as it could have been. For sure. And then Seraphon, Cities, Blades. That's the old Blades book. Seraphon are getting a new book, so I don't know how many people are taking it super seriously right now. It's hard to judge anything off that. And Cities has been a soup book for so long. It's so janky. You have some lists that are like incredibly strong. Like you can make really powerful Tempest Eye lists. You can have stuff that goes 4-1-5-0. But then I don't know.
Nobody has the models.
Pretty much, right? And nobody wants to buy any models because there's all these rumors of stuff getting yeeted out of the game. So
Yep.
it's pretty much just for the
It's like
the
who
few-
has 60 crossbows and like 6 Tempestors sitting.
the handful of
Yeah,
players who
maybe.
have this stuff sitting around are trying to make it work, and that doesn't necessarily overlap with like having the right combinations of units and then the right person piloting it and then understanding the meta. You need all of these things together. So yeah,
They need to like Rob was saying, more bigger.
and then
True.
old Gitz 23%. Yeah, see, like they were the only F tier army in the game. We don't have an F tier on our tier list anymore. There's nothing that bad anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I think, more indicative of what the meta actually looks like. This is faction popularity based on results, and this is a full counting of every single army. You can see most of the game is Slaves to Darkness, Stormcast Eternals, Ogres, Gitz, and Lumineth. And then Sylvaneth are up there too. So those are the armies you need to have a plan to deal with them because they're going to be your most common matchups. Odds are you're going in a round of 5 or even just like a local tournament, unless you're very familiar with the area. You should have a plan to deal with 2-up saves or even like 0+ saves in the sake of Stormcast. You need to have a plan to deal with Iron Blasters. You need a plan to deal with Stonehorns charging you with 17-inch move. You got to have a plan to deal with Squigs and Helon and trees. Like this is pretty indicative of the meta. Anyone? Anyone got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, that just kind of brings it all together. It all just depends on what you're expecting to see, and you're not wrong. Like, it's all about having an answer for what you need to have an answer for, what you're expecting in the meta. It's not really it's really hard to build a winner takes or take all comers list.
Mhm.
But if you know what's out there, you can really try to plan for it.
There's some interesting stuff on this graph too. If you take a look at Slaves to Darkness, they have as many lists that go 1 win as they do 4 and 5 wins combined. Like, they're so like, most Slaves players are either winning a lot or like not winning at all. It's very, very binary. Stormcast are heavier into like the 2-win range, like for most players, which is again this like Johnny, I think you called it, Mrigank, like that kind of player who just plays whatever they want. They're not necessarily trying to optimize it, or they're just missing some pieces. But then you start looking at armies like Gitz and Lumineth, where a bigger proportion of all of their players are having a lot of success.
Well, I mean, look at their look at the Gitz 1 wins versus like 4 wins. I mean, you can tell even like that speaks to just how powerful the army is on its own, where like even the casual people can easily just like go above 1 win. It's not a problem.
Lumineth players are at least 2 wins each. Like, there's almost nobody that's failing games with Lumineth. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
And then the other stat that I really like seeing is Daughters of Cain. Like, what a weirdly perfectly middle of the batch book.
It's now perfectly balanced. Marathi and the bow snakes.
Even all the ratios are almost perfectly balanced. Yeah, it's like crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
There's an event this month in Michigan. The grand prize is a full-size, authentic blacksmith-made Stormcast shield. Ooh.
Oh, all right. Time to go to Michigan.
Michigan GT? Okay.
I think Michigan GT is later in the year, isn't it?
That's cool.
I guess not. Maybe not. Maybe it is this early.
No, it's September 30. You're right. Yeah. What is this event? Ugh, I wanted to get that shield. Oh well.
Okay, I'm gonna shut off the Discord pop out here.
Oh yeah, this is next graph is pretty much similar to the previous graph, but kind of showing them more in comparison to each other, rather than kind of a popularity breakdown. But here you've got players achieving, the 5 wins versus 4 wins versus 3 wins, as far as without any losses, right? So 3-0, 4-0, 5-0.
Yeah, so
just kind of showing
the gray bars are people going 3 wins in a row. Yep. And then orange bars are 4 in a row, and then 5 is 5 wins in a row.
Yep, for the blue bars. Right. Yeah, so this is pretty much just kind of summarizing what you already know. Lumineth, really good. Gitz, really good. Sylvaneth holding pretty good there, like we talked about earlier. They've got a decent win rate across the board.
Mm-hmm. The closer the orange and blue bars get, that means I would say that's a strong indicator of how good an army is. Of course, with small sample sizes like these, it's tough to really know. But if you have if let's say looking at Ogres, they had 7 players go 4 in a row, and then 6 of those players turned it into a 5-0. That's saying that this army is either really strong, or the players are really good, or they're getting good matchups, or something. It's hard to know definitively with such small sample sizes.
Hey, let me ask: are these by player or by event?
Player.
So this is out of the for example, if you look at Fire Slayers with 94 players, 11 of those players went 3-0, and then out of those 11, 9 were able to convert those 3-0s to 4-0. Out of those 9, 6 of them were able to convert to 5-0. Right? So that kind of shows you like there's a lot of Fire Slayers players. A small amount of them are extremely good, and because they're able to pilot their army so well, they're actually able to take that win very efficiently, right?
What would be really interesting is if this graph was converted to percentages, because this is just raw numbers, and it's a little bit different. Like, Gloomspite has 140 players, whereas Fire Slayers have 94. So it'd be interesting to know what percentage of players are going 3-0, what percentage are going 4, and what percentage
we
are going
have
5.
that chart too.
Yeah, it was the previous one. Oh, is it the next one?
Oh no, I have another chart.
Oh,
that has that as well.
Okay.
It's just not in here. But I could put that one as well. We have a current result split that shows percentages on top of all this.
Yeah. So this is really just feeding more data that Gitz and Lumineth are certainly a little bit too strong. Sylvaneth
too, maybe.
Sylvaneth seem okay. Looking at these numbers, like 20 players going 3-0 out of 124, and then 12 of those converting that into a 4-0, and 6 of those converting it into a 5-0.
That seems fine.
The most balanced army in the game, guys.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yep.
Ogres, on the other hand, seems like 18 going 3-0, 7 to 6. It's a pretty good conversion rate, actually.
Hmm.
I still think Fire Slayers is super interesting. Out of 94 players, you still only got so few compared to the other ones in the, kind of the top here.
Well, I think because they're all trying the same thing, either, and so like it gets countered at the higher levels. I think 3-0 is very easy for Fire Slayers to get. I think 4-1 and 5-0s are another thing entirely.
What do you think
Well, it
people are
doesn't seem to
trying
be
right
too
now?
easy.
Magmadroth spam?
There's two lists. They're Magmadrot spam, and then there's the double Flame Keeper, 30 Volkite Berserkers, 15 Hardguard Berserkers.
I'm not too impressed by either of those. What I'm most impressed by
Yeah.
is like 2x15 Hearthguard and support hero package and then screens.
That's what I ran.
Yeah.
If Hardguard hadn't whiffed against Ogres, I probably would have been in that 4-1 bracket. Oh, actually, I was in the 4-1 bracket, that 5-0 bracket.
We're done.
So I mean, yeah, it's so I like Sylvaneth. They're doing good. Slaves of Darkness seems just like the perfectly balanced book. I mean, 16 to
also
10
is
to
pretty
5.
balanced.
Yeah, it's amazingly balanced.
205 results. We're not the most popular army, guys.
The distribution
no.
of Gitz going from 28 to 13 to 7, that also feels pretty good, like in terms of percentages. It's just the fact that they had 28 out of 140 hit that 3-0.
That's
Definitely an outlier.
yeah.
Yeah, they're mid-table
just-
bullies, just like Lumineth and Ogres.
But
And
there's
this
and
is
Sylvaneth
a solid
and
new book too
Yeah.
for Gitz.
is there
This is all new
perhaps an argument that people just needed to learn to play against Gitz, or do we think they still need nerfs?
There's some armies
they're
that just can't do anything to Gitz. It's the trading problem. It's like if Slaves of Darkness doesn't have a Mind Stealer, how do you ever beat Gitz when they're just trading better than you and bringing stuff back? Like,
Yeah.
like it's just very hard to beat in that sense.
they have like better recursion than death, but they're just so
Mhm.
efficient. Is the other thing? It's the
Yeah,
fact that
yeah.
you can take every single piece that you want for every single situation.
Well, that's the thing, and it's not just efficiency; it's more the recursion because it's like I'm okay with buying point guards being efficient, and then Gitz just has a lot of models that are weak because that's the theme of that army. I want at least one army to be like a horde army that you can just pump one unit that's really weak into it. It has really bad defense, but on the offense it's really good. The problem is I don't want that 15 unit to then bounce back and come back when you've killed my thing and I've killed your thing because my stuff isn't coming back, but I'm paying like more points than you or the same points
Well,
as you.
do keep in mind that it only, like, tactically speaking, like I get what you're saying in terms of like raw numbers, but tactically they come back at the end of that player's battle shock phase. So if you kill them in your turn, they're a worthless unit until the end of your opponent's next turn, and then they're not doing anything that
Sure,
turn.
but then you're saying in this very specific scenario where I double you and you don't get the turn.
No, not even double.
then-
Like even if that player gets the next turn, that whatever unit they revived doesn't come back until the end of that turn. So like let's say you go top of 1, you kill the squig unit, it gets revived bottom of 1, and then they have to double for that unit to be any good. Otherwise, you can just keep wiping it out.
This is the way.
The thing is, like, they just also have such a density of wounds. Even with Squig Herd that just run away like crazy, it's like they can just bog you in their zone. Pin and win is actually like a pretty good playstyle for Gitz.
It is just because of you don't want to commit damage to squigs unless you're going to fully wipe them, right?
Mhm.
So I can see that. I don't think, earlier I was kind of on the like nerf Gitz by like 20% across the board with their points, or at least like all the heroes and everything need to be massively overcost. Like 80 points for Squig Boss still feels way too low. But if those lists could lose, let's say they're at 1900 right now because a lot of them are just playing 100 points over. If those lists lost, 200 points, if they took a 10% nerf, I think that would be okay for them. I don't want to cripple them.
No, that's what we said. We said every Gitz player feels like they're playing like a 2300, 2400 point list. So if they caught like a 300 point nerf, that'd be perfectly in line.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think maybe 200 in that range. I don't think it should be any less than that though. They still feel very, very good.
Yeah, I could see that. I could honestly, I could even see like Ogres going up a little.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I see that
the
too.
conversion rate on the beasts, they're super efficient. And I don't think they've accounted for what happens when you take Kragnos as one of the Stonehorns and you just unload like 15 dice worth of charge mortals into someone.
It can be very good, yeah. I mean,
But
I
taking
don't know if
Kragnos,
Kragnos is necessarily the best way still.
I don't agree either. I think the problem with taking Kragnos as a conversion for a Stonehorn is because of his point value, you end up basically being locked into taking something like the Hunter and the 3 80-point units of Sabers as your battle line. Otherwise, you end up with no board coverage.
I think that's fine though. Like what's holding Kragnos back right now is Lumineth being so good at shooting him down, and Gitz just killing him with squigs, right? Like these two things, if they get nerfed, Kragnos is going to come roaring back into the meta.
Yep, I was gonna say that. Like the only thing holding back Kragnos is Lumineth, but there are more wounds, and Lumineth for sure is getting hit this next battle scroll. We know that. Like Matt Rose basically said it in his video.
Mhm.
So Kragnos lists are actually really good. I faced a list that was, I think, Kragnos, Frostlord, 2 more Stormhorns, and a Mournfang pack, and it basically went 5-0 because it can just like get you turn 1. It's so good.
Kazarol is asking, will Squig bosses still be so scary without key to victory? Probably not.
Well,
But
they're
80 points
they're
is still
not
too
now.
low.
Yeah, so all of the Gitz heroes are way underpointed. And what you're seeing is the armies that are taking sharpshooters and have the ability to eliminate the squig bosses, the shamans, those sorts of key critical buff pieces, they stomp on those armies. Stark's list absolutely annihilated all 3 of the top Gitz lists at Sparkle Party.
Yeah, if you can do that, it's a lot easier, but not every army can do that, right? A lot of armies just don't have any range power. Ironjawz, the new ogres that people are seeing, like there's very limited range power. My argument for the squig bosses just being undercosted, even without seasonal rules, is like I played Seraphon. I know how good 80-point support heroes are. Skink Priest, Skink Star Priest, these things were criminally undercosted forever. And they, instead of nerfing those 2 support pieces, which are really the core of the army, they kept increasing the cost of Bastillodons and Salamanders and Skinks and all these other units that, frankly, didn't deserve the nerfs. It was always the heroes.
Salamanders maybe did.
And the instant they nerfed
First
the
nerf, for
heroes,
sure.
the book went down. The book went down.
Yeah. The second
The
they
minute
nerfed
they
the
nerfed all
heroes.
the book went down in win rate. And it's like the same problem as Daughters of Cain. Hack Queens, when they came out, were 70 points. That was insane.
Mhm.
Insane. For a unit that does a prayer and a witch brew. So yeah, the squig boss probably need to be like 110 at least, or 100 points, 120 maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Stormcast. Our heroes are drastically overcosted, and it's hurting us right now. So hero cost is a really important thing. It kind of limits what the rest of the army does.
Yep.
Taking a look at the next thing. Okay, we're on to the tier list.
On to our tier list, yeah.
Let's do it. Here we go, making a fresh tier list. This is going to be the last tier list we can make until before the battle scroll comes out. So this will be like a snapshot of where things are. And I'm okay with including first impressions of Khorne and first impressions of Slaanesh, because we are pretty deep into making our... Yeah, we've done pretty thorough reviews. Our Slaanesh review is recorded. I just need to edit, and then it's done. So I think I'm ready to give some first impressions on that, and Khorne especially as well.
Cool.
Let's just start by filling out the S tier, which is going to be Tzeentch, Gitz, and Lumineth, right? Anybody contesting those?
Like, what else are you going to say?
Yeah.
They're just good for all the reasons we've talked about.
Yeah. We're doing a little bit of a different thing here. We used to have just like a big A tier and a B tier, but after the last few videos, there were no F tier armies and there were no D tier armies. I think we had a couple in D tier, but I don't. At this point, I don't think there's any army that can actually be called F tier. Mm-hmm. So we can just strike that.
Yeah, if you're new to our tier lists, we try to rank them kind of based on, where these armies generally fall in as far as being able to achievably do, like, for example, S tiers, like, they achievably can 5-0 very well, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't take as much work as other armies to 5-0, and so they can do so very well. Gitz, Tzeentch, and Lumineth have proven able to do so consistently.
Mm-hmm.
They're staying up there in the S tier.
From regular casual games all the way to like top tier tables, these armies are dominating when they're played properly.
And it doesn't mean like a C tier army can't 5-0. It's just that, we generally expect them to 3-0, 3-2 more so than, 4-1 or 5-0. So it's, that's the reason we really want to stick to that. And so that's the reason why we're just splitting the A and B tier to make it a little more easily visible.
And this is the first time I'd say ever that Age of Sigmar has been this balanced. There have been F tier armies that, like, a new book comes out and they're an F tier army because of that new book. 3rd edition Age of Sigmar has been the best time to ever play Age of Sigmar in terms of army balance. You can pick any army and have a chance at 5-0. Every single army has a chance at it. There's no objective. At least
4-1. Like 4-1 is still an amazing result. The fact that you can pick any army up and be like, yeah, that army can go 4-1 is amazing.
Which is great.
It's the first time I've been able to talk to newer players and say, hey, pick what models you find are cool. Instead of having to have the separate talk where I'm like, these models are cool, but the rules suck.
Talk,
Now, with a caveat, it may require specific builds. It may require specific models. You maybe don't want to play Morathi and the Bow Snakes and only have Morathi and the Bow Snakes, but that's what that faction's all about. right? So
I know the macro drops are cool, but
yeah, there's that's I just want to add that caveat. But aside from that, yes, we've got an upper tier and a lower tier for both the A tier and the B tier because they were so packed tight, and we started getting into arguments of like, well, this is better than this, and it's like let's just say everything in the upper tier is better than everything in the lower tier, and leave it at that, right? We don't have to argue like that granular. Okay, let's just do this methodically. Dan, pick an army, and we'll argue about it.
why don't we pick one of the surprising ones, Flesh Eater Courts. This is
Okay.
a neat one.
All right.
Flesh. Oh, can I propose my
Yeah.
Flesh Eater Court?
Where would you like to put it, and then we can argue with you about it.
Okay, I'm thinking upper B tier.
Okay.
I'm kind of feeling it. I think the fact that there's a couple lists that can do really well, not just like the one list that's able to perform. I think it's really solid, especially for like a second edition list like that. It has some counterplay, but I think it's good enough to be upper B. Maybe
I agree
I'm
with
wrong.
him. Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
gimmicky enough to get upper B. Solid.
Well, since it's the
I think
first
it's
army,
good to have a couple lists, not just one, but a couple lists.
let me ask you this then, as a frame of reference, what would you consider a lower A tier army, and what would you consider a lower B tier army? Just so we know, because if this is between them, we have a rough frame of mind.
Upper A tier that I think we can
We'll
easily
say lower
put up is
A.
Fire Slayers.
Lower A.
Lower A.
Yeah.
Oh, lower A. Let's see, who's the stereotypical lower A? Probably Daughters of Cain.
Nighthaunt is a lower A, I would say.
I actually don't think Nighthunt's a lower A.
I disagree with both of those
They have
picks.
been
I
doing
think
well. Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
both
really?
Of
Even the
yeah.
Daughters of Cain.
I don't think either of those can be called A tier. We haven't called them A tier.
Okay.
all season.
Lower A, Nurgle for sure.
Nurgle, sure.
Okay.
Nurgle is like the top of the lower A tier. Like they're like middle of A. They're perfectly the middle of A.
So I think for clarification, I think we should say upper A tier is an army that can very consistently go 4-1, and with some luck will go to 5-0.
Mm-hmm.
Lower A tier is something that can go 4-1 or 5-0, but generally has an unfavorable matchup against upper A tier.
Yeah, it might be meta specific. It might just be like particular lists.
Yep. It's basically depending on what matchups you have, what lists you fight, what players you fight. A lower tier typically has a harder time against upper tier.
But it is worth mentioning they're still both A tier. I would say every army in lower A tier is still better than every army in both B tiers.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not that A tier lower can never beat A tier upper. They can and they have. It's just slightly favored. It's a matter of small percentages, really.
Yeah.
So lower B tier OBR?
I think I don't think this will be controversial.
I think OBR is.
I think Nighthaunt. I think Nighthaunt is our gauge. This is the lower B tier army. It's it's just fine, but it's not good enough, right?
Anymore.
It's not great.
Yeah, so I think that's what a lower B tier army is to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Robert is saying Daughters of Cain lower B. You know what? I'm actually inclined to agree with that. What do you guys think?
Okay, fair enough.
So I don't know if you know someone called Piotr Kurowski. Okay, I can't pronounce his name. He's Polish. He plays in Poland mostly. Peter Kurkowski, I think that's his name. He's somewhat of a dedicated Daughters player. He plays Daughters a lot. And he's been trying stuff that is in Marathi. And I think those lists have some potential. It's just no one has been brave enough to try them. Yeah. I do think Daughters does not have the durability to run the kind of list that they've been doing. I think they get smashed against some of the more hard tier lists. So I would say, unfortunately, I think I would personally say upper B tier because they still can catch a lot of things by surprise. Like I think they can definitely beat Nighthaunt. So, but I think B tier upper is probably the right place for them.
Okay, Jack, what do you think for Daughters?
For Doc, upper B.
Upper B for Daughters. Dan?
I'm gonna vote upper B.
Upper B. All right, I'm getting outvoted here. I personally don't see them being that good, especially because I really compare Daughters of Cain to Slaanesh, and Slaanesh does the non-Marathi build way better than Marathi and the Bowsnakes could ever hope.
And Diminet's build is pretty.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stick them in there. Again, it's all B tier, so we're just arguing about minor points here, which is fun. But sure. Okay, so if Marathi and the Bowsnakes is a upper B tier army, do we think Flesh Eater Courts is at the same level?
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
I think Doc can be more consistent. Maybe Flesh Eater Courts does go to lower B.
Okay. And there's
That's
no difference in left to right in these tiers. Everything
No,
lower
yeah,
B.
we're just gonna.
Yeah.
It's too much.
I'm not going to compare one lower B tier army to another one. That's not really worth the time. Okay, so that was Dan's pick, was Flesh Eater, and as a result of that, we got 4 different armies on the board. We'll have a better frame of reference this time around. Jack, which one would you like to talk about?
Let's do slaves.
Okay. What's your pick for slaves? Where do you think they belong?
I think slaves is a lower A.
Okay. We've been consistently placing them in the B tier for all of our tier reviews, our tier lists.
Yeah,
so do you think they've gotten better?
Them.
Okay, that's an argument. Why do you get... Well,
Dan, Paul, what do you think? What do you think personally? Like, I just want to know. What do you think of slaves?
I'm still on them being a B tier army until people get enough Splintered Fangs. If they don't nerf them, once they get Splintered Fangs, they jump into A tier for me. But like
I still think there's some play without Splintered Fangs.
The chosen builds are like chosen knights, warriors, whatever. All those builds are not super impressive. They are, to me, Ironjawz but worse. And I wouldn't put Ironjawz in A tier. That's my argument, and I'd like to hear some counterpoints if you guys got them.
Well, I have a very specific experience with Ironjawz, so I think Ironjawz is a lower A tier. But the thing with slaves is that every time I've played slaves, it has been a hard game with one exception. I went into the Varangard list with my Iron Blasters, and that was an even game, right? But so there are certain matchups where slaves are really at a disadvantage, but there are other matchups that they are absolutely fantastic into, and they've got a lot of versatility. They've got a lot of variety.
Yeah.
Well, what matchups do you think are really good for them? Because looking at what we have in S and A tier, and I guess we can keep updating this as we go through the discussion. But I think Slaves has a pretty bad matchup to all 3 of the S tier armies. I think Lumineth, Disciples of Tzeentch, and Gitz have a great time fighting against specific threat range melee units that can't shoot.
So what tools they take? I think Gitz is something slaves could beat if they tooled better into not all damage melee hammers and took some utility like Sphinxes and Cockadors.
And more disposable units for sure.
Yeah, I would rank them A tier lower because they consistently go 4-0 because 20 chosen are just good. 6 Vanguard are just good. And if you put Mystic Shield and all out defense on them, there's not a lot that can chew through it. Because sometimes your dice just spike and you're rolling 3-up saves like a boss, and then you're just winning. Double fight is really good.
Yeah, list for Stormcast, right? Like
Marcus Lanesh is really good. You just take chosen Marcus Lanesh, Soul Screen bridge them up with your 3d6 cast, +2 to charge, they fight twice. They can fight past the screen sometimes if your opponent messes up in their deployment. So it's pretty crazy.
Okay. You guys are outvoting me here. I feel like in terms of just what their potential is and the matchups in the meta, I feel like they're an upper B tier army, but I'll drop them into the lower A tier.
So here's my last argument for them, right? We just saw how many people play them, and there's more people playing Slaves than are playing Stormcast. And their conversion rate is just way better into like a 4-0. I think that alone points to how they're at least a lower A tier army.
Yeah, they may have some worse matchups than us, but I think they also have some better matchups than we do.
I think the conversion rate is more like because Stormcast are harder to play because they do more than just cast spells that pretty much can't be unbound and then run forward and hit you. Like Stormcast require full knowledge of the game in order to have a basic chance at it and good list construction. Whereas with Slaves, it feels like they build lists that are just tough. Like it's so easy to build Slaves lists that just do the bare minimum. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then that's not being differentiated here. We're just saying the book is getting to where people can do that.
What I'm saying is the conversion rate is probably explained by that more so than how strong the army is.
Well, sure, but then that speaks to how strong the army is if people can just easily build a slaves list and go at least 3-0 and have a decent chance of conversion to a 4-0.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going with. The simplicity is good.
Yeah, like Ironjawz lists aren't complicated, but they can still be good.
Okay. Well, I've made my case. I think they're Ironjawz but worse, and I think the Splintered Fang Ravager lists are going to be what propels them into A tier once people get on that train. But okay, moving on. Mrigank, how about you pick us an army for us?
Wait, shouldn't Slaves be 1 tier higher?
Lower A tier?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we voted for. I
That's
think.
where I put them.
Okay.
Maybe the stream hasn't
let's
caught up yet.
It hasn't caught up yet. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm gonna go pick. Let's go with Fire Slayers.
Okay, and make your case for where they should be. D tier,
So
obviously,
picking
right?
No, I very much like them. Given the seasonal rules, I think they're lower A tier.
Okay.
I think they have the tools to beat like the top 2 armies, at the very least, Lumineth and Tzeentch. Tzeentch might be a tougher time, but you can easily beat the Lumineth army. Like they just have to shoot you from range, and you don't care because you have wards.
Yeah.
They can't shoot your heroes, and you can rally. That's all you save your command points for.
They can tank an incarnate too from the.
Yeah, they can tank an incarnate. Yeah, they have tools like they're slow, so that's like one of the main weaknesses of the army. And they have good prayers. They have a decent amount of like mobility. You can pop the runes to like give yourself, and that one turn where you really need to pop off and have all your buffs. +1 attack, +1 rend. Just crazy amounts of buffs going. Fighting with your Rune Father and both units of Hearthguard Berserkers at the same time. Fighting twice with your Rune Father. They can just do some crazy force multiplicative turns on combat. So I quite like that. But then again, this is completely seasonal dependent. I think if Key to Victory goes away for Galatian Champions, I think they drop down a tier because you just shoot the heroes off and the game's over.
I was about to say, I think they're upper A tier right now because of Key to Victory and the fact that they can take some really good matchups. I do think that their general win rate is kind of brought down by people just joining Magma Draw spam. I think that Fire Slayers is definitely upper A tier right now, and that after the season they'll be lower A tier.
100% agree with Dan. I think that's exactly right. They're such a strong army. Looking at what's in the meta right now, there isn't like the only armies that are really running monsters are Flesh Eaters, which we'll see how popular they get, and Ogres. And Ogres, you can still just slap them. Like you can do great against Ogres.
Okay, in my experience, the main problem that I have with Ogres is, can you slap them? Yes. And I mean, other than my Hearthguard whiffing that match, like on the Mortal Wounds, like 45 dice, 1/6. Who what are you gonna do against that? Nothing.
Dice game.
But
Dice game.
Dice game. I'm totally fine with that. The one problem that I have is that stupid 3d6 action. Because they can just fly over your dudes and kill your battlesmith, kill your like rune masters and rune smiters or whatever.
It's D3 Mortal Wounds, so it's not gonna kill a Greyford.
No,
he gets into combat
on your lines and hitting you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, just screen better. Like have stuff in the way so he physically can't finish in range to fight you.
But I'm saying like it's a lot of different kinds of mortal wounds, right? Because it's like they'll charge into your line. Do you prevent the charge mortal wounds? Probably not, but then they'll just fly over. So you need to have something dedicated to always be stopping that move, and it's very hard when you're taking 2 units, 3 blocks of infantry, because then you also need to be occupying objectives. You also need to hold something in deep strike in case the battle plan is one where like an objective just pops up somewhere else or something.
I think the gun haulers really help with that, being this unit that can sit on an objective and shoot stuff. I think that pivot is going to keep. I think that's upper A tier, man. The good Fire Slayer lists are really good.
Yeah. That's what
I think what the Fire Slayer players are doing Magma Draws for is to get some mobility, but it's the bad kind of mobility. I think they should be looking at allies rather than trying to take the mobile options in Fire Slayers right now.
Well, it's not mobility, it's speed, right? And they're mistaking the two. Magma Draws get in, but then they just die and they don't accomplish much.
Yeah. Okay, you could say upper A. Like I'm fine with either way.
Okay.
I think I think it could just be a symptom of people only net listing and playing like Magma Drought spam and the 30 Welkites with 2 Flame Keepers or whatever.
Isn't it crazy that the Magma Drought spam got as popular as it did, as quick as it did? Because that was never a thing in 2nd edition. It was always Hearthguard.
They gave it to
people
them.
like their toys, man.
It's crazy.
People really like Monster Smash. They always at least make one sub faction where you can Monster Smash.
Okay, I'm good with upper A tier. Jack, do you have any thoughts on Fire Slayers?
I don't have a lot of experience against them. The Fire Slayers lists that I've seen are the net lists, and they're not hard to beat. So I was going to put them like lower A, but if y'all who know them are telling me that there's better lists out there, I'll believe you.
Yeah, Robert makes a good point, Mrigank. If he's drifting over your army, he's not roaring you, which means you can fight first. So you'd have to be getting double charged by this, and they've only got the prayer on one of the guys to get the +3 move.
If you reposition though, you can
Right,
reposition
but the problem
yourself
is
to
I'm
not
talking
pile.
about fighting a Kragnos list, so
Oh,
everything in that
yeah.
army is charging 3d6. I'm not talking about your typical Stonehorn. That I can deal with all day.
Yeah,
But yeah.
the Kragnos is also. I think you're okay into Kragnos because they can't get through the firewall. You just stick a firewall in the way.
No, that's what I did. No, that's
Well,
exactly what I did. He
you're not going
gave
turn
the
one,
first
though,
turn.
too.
I firewalled him. I then blockaded
Yeah.
him in his zone. I got the turn. I charged 2 Stonehorns and another one. Popped Lord of the Lodge for +1 attack, and my Hearthguard on one flank just
delete.
baked.
Yeah,
All his dudes left alive on 2 wounds, and that ended the game.
yeah.
That basically ended the game. Yep.
Well, okay. Thinking
No,
about
I totally agree.
yeah.
But
Thinking
the thing is, like, the thing is, I can still come back, but from that turn. But the problem is, after that, when he charges in or whatever, he can always just fly over my lines, delete my Battlesmith, and then my Hearthguard are on a clock after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's another thing to consider is that with the prevalence of -1 hit, -1 wound effects that we're seeing in the game right now, melee units that deal significant mortal wounds on hit rolls of 6 are actually pretty rare. There is not a lot of units like this left in the game. Fire Slayers are one of the few that do this, and like Stormcast Retributors are the same way. We can get through like a -2 hit, -1 to wound, whereas a lot of other armies wouldn't be able to. So
Yeah, it can help.
Fire Slayer is very good. Seasonal rules are definitely propping them up because needing sharpshooters to kill the Battlesmith, and then the Battlesmith also having a ward against death is really, really good. And then Tunnel Master
Yeah.
too. Good God, they're so good.
Yeah, a lot of good utility for them. It's a good army in general anyway.
Oh,
and
I forgot to
even-
mention, I also failed Gurish Rage.
Oh,
the-
yeah.
the one that brings him back to life. So
Yeah,
that ended
see,
the game. Yes.
It's dice stuff, man. You know, dice stuff happens.
All right, my turn to make a pick, and I'm gonna make a bold prediction here. Khorne upper A tier. Khorne looks very, very good.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah,
They look
It's-
so
they're
good
very
that
efficient.
I'm
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
sure they're gonna get nerfed already. There's some
Uh,
stuff in that book.
maybe a
If that,
tad.
if that one blood tithe ability that moves 3 units where you
Yeah.
can get into combat does not get nerfed, they will be upper A tier for a good long time.
And then
Yeah,
as the lists
I-
get refined, I think they might start creeping into the new S. Once the current 3 armies are
Oh,
nerfed in
yeah.
there, I think Khorne becomes the new S. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's because of 3 things mainly. One is Bloodbind is absolutely insane. I'll put Murderlust on kind of the same tier. Bloodbind and Murderlust pulling units outside of the normal movement and being able to move within 3 inches is absolutely disgusting. That's the movement wins games, and that forces movement. So that's like automatically a powerful thing. Second is Halo of Blood is the best artifact in the game. There has never been an artifact as good as Halo of Blood. It is absurdly powerful, and in that army in particular, it's also really, really good. Being able to strike first all the time with any unit is good, but then you put it on like a Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, so he's always striking first offensively and defensively, and then he pulls in another Bloodthirster, and like Bloodthirsters don't do the most damage in the game until you get a whole bunch of Blood Tithe, and that army's really good at generating Blood Tithe. Skull Cannons are nuts, but my third point of what is so good is the Bloodmaster and Bloodletters. Being able to strike first defensively, like it can be really hard to avoid charging into a Bloodmaster. And then when they strike first offensively and defensively, it's nuts. And then you pull in a Galatian Command unit.
Yeah, it's a Quicksilver Drought. It's always on Quicksilver Drought.
Way easier to use it though, because you can pull in a unit that's wholly within 16 of the Bloodmaster instead of wholly within 6, like Quicksilver requires with the seasonal rules. Like Khorne is very stacked. They have weaknesses, namely like they don't really have good armor units aside from Skull Crushers and Blood Warriors, and I don't know, like Blood Warriors are being propped up by veterans. They won't really see play once that's gone. Skull Crushers are slow-ish, like 8-inch move max, so they could double it with Killer Instinct. You probably won't be able to get the run and charge off because you'll be out of range of the Bloodstoker, right? Because it has to happen at the start of the movement phase, so you've already prayer moved your way out of that position. So you're either getting Killer Instinct or you're getting the run and charge, not both. So they're not super fast. Like the whole army kind of plays like 18 to 20 inches. That's kind of the Khorne kill zone. But if you're in that zone, it hurts.
That's far enough, though.
It's so brutal how good they are. Like Bloodbind, pulling units, like pulling screens away so that your Skull Cannons can shoot the heroes through Key to Victory, and then you generate 2 tithe for every small support hero you kill this way. It's so gross, man. Yeah, that's my argument for Khorne, upper A tier, probably the new S tier when everything gets nerfed.
Yeah, they may need
I
a
agree.
small tap, but it's not like they're not super out of balance. Like they're not like
No,
Git's
it's
too
the
efficient.
exact
They're
opposite
not like
problem.
doing disgusting stuff as disgusting as like Tzeentch.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not as oppressive as Teclis. So
Hmm.
it'll be an S tier that maybe doesn't need to get nerfed as hard as some of these
It-
other S tier armies need.
I would
It might.
recommend two
They
changes.
need, their heroes need to go up, and Murderlust needs to go away or change drastically.
It probably change. Yeah,
You shouldn't.
it's tweaked more than anything else. I think.
Yeah, and I think rule tweaks are necessary. Halo of Blood needs to be only when you charge. I think a defensive strike first artifact is a mistake
It's a
always
little
in the
bit too
game.
strong.
The only like you'd have to severely nerf every unit that can take it. Like Demon Prince level of nerf, right? Like Demon Princes are really bad. They have a strike first artifact, but in with Bloodthirsters, it's with Bloodmaster, it's too good.
Well, no, we've seen this already. Flesh Eater Courts. They used to have always
Mm.
strike first on their general,
Yep.
and it was the most busted thing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be allowed to do that. Yeah.
Now there could be a difference because Bloodthirsters don't hit as hard as Terrorgeist used to, but it's still insanely good, right?
Yeah.
So I would change that. I'd make it so that that's consistent with other strike first effects. You get it when you charge, and I would also make it so that you can't pull things within 3 inches with Bloodbind and Murderlust. Those two things are so powerful. Denying Unleash Hell, denying redeploy. Pulling screens away is already strong enough. The fact that you can do so much by pulling stuff within that 3-inch zone, it's so good. If they nerf that army, I think that's where you start, is those two abilities. But we'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Murderlust more than Bloodbind. I think Bloodbind is probably fine.
Khorne doesn't have very high damage to start the game off, right? They have to roll into a bunch of attack bonuses. They need a Bloodsecrator, but that takes away other things. They have like pretty low damage across the board, like lower than Night Haunt even, until they get their buffs rolling. So maybe it's not a problem. Maybe you can disrupt it well enough, you kill all the priests, and then you just pick it apart. I don't know.
I think Bloodbind is fine. I think that requires a lot of setup. I think Murderlust is a problem because you can spam it at the end of every hero phase, yours and theirs, for 1 Blood Tide for 3 units. It's insane. It's like, imagine our dragons moving every hero phase, D6 inches.
Murderlust is definitely better, but I'm worried about Bloodbind too. For sure.
I think Bloodbind's probably fine. Like the range on it is fine enough. It's 18, right?
It's 16 like every prayer. So then you pull
16,
something
okay,
8 and it's pretty easy to position something so you just have it within 3 inches in that unit.
Yeah.
It's really strong, and I think it's a level of power that army shouldn't. No army should have that. That's too much jankiness with movement.
Maybe.
That's fair.
Okay. If there's no objections, let's move on to another army. Dan, your pick. Let's go.
All right. I think we should pull up the ogres.
Okay. Where would you like to see them first?
I think ogres are going to be upper A tier. Pretty.
Okay.
I don't think it's too brave to say that. I could see an argument for them being lower A tier this season because the Iron Blasters aren't as good this season, and then they move to upper A tier next season.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think
they're still upper A tier.
I think they're still good enough. Like the Boulderhead builds are definitely still good enough to be upper A tier, though.
Definitely.
Even the Iron Blaster list.
Even the Iron Blaster list are very
still
good.
upper A. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just kill everything. You just don't need to worry about shooting specific targets, but you can just, or you can combine them. You can take Iron Blasters and you can take like Boulderhead meat. So it's like whatever.
Personally, I'm not that impressed by the Boulderhead list. I played against a lot of Beastclaw Raiders in first edition. This is a worse version of those first edition lists. They don't have the snowballs and the Thunder Tusks anymore. They have that stupid rampage, but like you can play around it by just not letting them charge you. They don't run in charge anymore. So that's my opinion. But I think the two builds that keep this relevant are mixing in any number of Iron Blasters. That's always a persistent threat. Like it's so strong that it warps the meta, like 2+ saves on slaves warp the meta. And then the Kragnos list is honestly such a big deal. People don't understand how good Kragnos is going to be once they nerf Lumineth and Gitz. He's going to be real good. 3d6 charging on those guys, man, is not even just the mortal wounds, but just the threat ranges. Like that's the weakness of Boulder Beastclaw, is that there's very specific threat ranges. Adding an extra d6 on top of that changes everything, and then it also contributes more damage on top of that. So yeah, I'm agreeing with this placement, but maybe not for the same reason you guys are saying. I think just the Boulderhead. If it was just Boulderhead and Underguts, I'd say lower A. But I think the Kragnos list is propping it up.
Yeah,
there's a world of difference between a 14-inch move, 2d6 charge, and a 14-inch move, 3d6 charge.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yep. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Jack, your pick. Let's go.
Since let's do OBR.
OBR. Okay. Where do you think OBR should land right now before they get a new book?
Right now, lower B.
Whoa. I don't know about that.
Not everyone is you, Mrigank.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like the Flesh Eater courts where you've got specific lists that can do it in certain hands.
I mean, my kid just went 3-2 with them playing
Mhm.
a Praetorian build with Catacross. Like, it's fine.
I think it's fine.
I think it's upper B personally. Obviously, like if you're someone who's relying on the Catacross builds, or like I'm gonna spam Mortec Guard with Archon and a bunch of wizards, I don't think you're gonna do well. I think
Right.
in order to do well with OBR, you need to understand that you don't have 18 stalkers or at least 12 stalkers. Okay, you're not winning.
Yeah, so I think,
But they have-
as they stand now, they can be totally upper B, especially with Gitz being S tier.
Yes, I would say they have all the tools to stop like the Bravery shenanigans. They can shoot through armor, they can save through rend. What they don't really like is mortal wounds and ranged attacks, which makes them really soft against some of the A tier armies. But I think they can go toe to toe with someone trying to do honest melee. So B tier, upper is I think the minimum for them, and they can hopscotch into like A tier, depending on what armies you fight, obviously.
I wouldn't go so far as to call them A tier, but I'll agree with you, Mrigank, that they feel better than lower B to me. They feel better than Nighthaunt and Flesh Eaters. And I've been saying that OBR is a good army for a long time. They've got a lot of great tools. Stalkers are fantastic. I think the best thing is you can't unbind my spells. God, it's so strong. It's so
Yeah.
strong.
Yep. Also, reroll saves. If you don't have a monster to roar me, and you can't roar stalkers because like it doesn't matter because they can always reroll saves. It's the most busted thing ever. I've had Thankful charge into 6 stalkers and just do no damage.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
And you need that though, because you can't revive them, right? There's no way to revive them in the game, unlike any other army. Like sometimes Fulminators, you revive 1 or 2 of them off a rally. They should really cap rally to 8 wounds, man.
I know, it's about time.
Okay, so we're kind of torn here. I'm inclined to say upper B, like Mrigank. Jack and Dan, you guys are saying lower B. How do we split the difference here?
Like I definitely think you
I
can
don't
beat Nighthaunt and Flesh Eater courts. I think you can beat Daughters. Like OBR fighting Daughters is not a problem.
If you're confident with it, I'll go with it.
I'll go upper B because like
Okay.
once you start playing catapults, or like once you realize Mortec Guard spam and Catacross isn't the way to go right now, I think you can do a lot with them. But then again, I'm talking about 1 more week, so don't
But
go
also,
out buying more
We're
models.
also about to get a new book,
Right.
so I'm really like, sure,
Right.
sure, throw them
Yeah,
up there.
but-
Let's do it.
Yeah, just don't buy more models. And everything's gonna get more expensive, obviously. But it's like, yeah, I think they were at least solid upper B. Like I had a good time. Like I would have a good time fighting slaves or Nurgle or like even like Corn.
We
Not
have to put
I
it
don't know
in
about
S
Unicorn,
tier
but
now,
yeah.
actually.
Chat has spoken.
Yeah, chat has spoken.
It's going in S tier, baby. Thanks, Shero. Thank you very much. Yeah, they make your head hurt. What do you mean by that? Why does OBR make your head hurt?
Reroll saves is busted, man. For
It's
armies like IDK who don't have roar, what do when you're just rerolling saves and saving everything one of their like -1 rend attacks? There's
Yeah.
nothing.
the roar immunity is huge, man. I love being that army not using command abilities is kiss curse, right? It's great. They don't care about any of the nonsense Lumineth is doing to them with Total Eclipse. They could just cast their spells without unbinding attempts. Like Techless, nah, I'm good, thanks. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
like once they get close enough, you can just kill them. And yeah, I think upper B it has to be upper B. But then again, it's a new book. Let's just put it in upper B and move on.
Okay. All right. Mrigank, pick an army.
Okay. Let's go with the new Kharadron Overlords.
All right. What are you thinking?
Thinking S tier.
Really? Okay.
I think they're S tier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear the argument
think-
for it.
So we've obviously seen like a lot of the weird like melee lists. I think a lot of the shooting lists also are incredibly busted. Like spell in a bottle not costing points anymore, or in the terms of like you don't need to take the endless spell. Um, and the fact that so I have a friend Carl who's making lists with Ironclad, 15 Thunderers, 2 Arknaut Company, Admiral, Navigator, Chemist, and Gotrek. And Gotrek is basically it's like the Kronspine for Tzeentch. It covers up that key spot in their army that they need. Um, to where if you're worried about ogres coming against you and charging you, put a Gotrek in the way, and just watch them like just fall flat on like whatever it is they're trying
Real
to
quick,
do.
you said you don't need to put the spell in your list. I thought you still had to bring the spell
Wait,
and
what?
pay points
No,
for it.
still-
no, it's free. You don't have to physically take it. They can just
Oh,
it's points free.
I missed that.
I
They can
really
make it
missed
two.
that.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me pull up.
Wait
the
a
quote.
minute. Now I have to look. Is it really?
I'd be surprised by that. I'm pretty sure it still costs points. I don't think that's like
Yeah.
I don't think it like crushes your argument or anything, but
Yeah. I don't think it's S tier.
Yes, it is free. It says pick one endless spell that does not belong to a faction. You can include that
Oh.
endless spell in your army without spending any points to do so.
okay.
Yeah, that's what it says.
I guess
Yeah.
I just glazed over
However,
that.
the Barak cannot control that endless spell. Isn't that great?
Yeah, so that's why when I was sharing lists with you, Daniel, last night, you were like, "Why is your list over points?" It's because the Soulstream Bridge
Oh,
isn't
the
counted.
spell is over. Okay, I understand now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really
so your
interesting.
list is so you can bring in Riggers now too with that list, and it's basically use 3 Skullstream Bridge up, 15 Thunders, and you delete whatever you have to. Ironclad
Yeah.
follows up 2.9 inches behind for the last word in Unleash Hell. Gotrek to just cover up your melee deficiencies. You can get up to -3 rend on your Thunders, which is insanely good. Plus, if something shoots the Thunders, they can shoot back at something. It doesn't have to be that thing.
If they survive the shooting, right? They have to. That's
Yes.
a big caveat on that.
So
I mean, Thunders are 15 wounds, 2 wounds, 15 models, 2 wounds, 3 up save, 4 up rally. So
And you have
know,
to be in range
yeah.
too. So if something like Sentinels shoot you from 19 inches away, you won't be able to shoot back at them.
sure,
you have
but
to be in range.
in that case, you're just rallying them back. You don't care.
Well, you
Um,
rally back the next turn is what I'm saying. But yeah.
yeah. So you can, and since this list is a 1-drop, you can, or like, is it 1-drop? Yeah, because Gotrek is not a leader. It can be 1-drop. So yeah, you just effectively just try to get first turn and delete Lumineth off the board.
I wouldn't go as far as S tier.
I don't think I could go as far as S tier just because it's such a
Oh, it's at least upper
one-dimensional
A. At least
alpha.
upper A. Yeah.
But I would agree with upper A. 100% I agree with upper A. I do think that there's really strong versions of the list, but I do think it's a little bit one-dimensional and can be picked apart. I mean, the Aether Chemist dying is already like that stops a lot of the list, right? Like you're not doing anything if that Aether Chemist dies. You can't even pick up those 15 Thunderers. Well, you could pick them up by just dropping everything right out of the boat. I think you can still reload it.
Well,
But
you
still,
don't
you
have to
had to
drop
be ready for
everything
that.
out of the boat. You can just Soulscream Bridge them up, which is the spell that I
Well,
see
that's the
them
thing. If
taking
the
most.
Chemist dies, though, you don't get Soulscream Bridge.
And that's why you're a 1-drop. But yes, it could happen
Yeah.
that they could snipe it, but seasonal rules prevent that. So and Lumineth isn't taking sharpshooters. So
No, they're
That's
not.
fair. I mean, there's other armies that could, I guess, but yeah, I mean, and then after this season, I don't think it's as
sure,
scary.
but I think
I do
as right
think
now
there's
they're
other lists.
extremely efficient. I think they trade really well, and it's like the dragon problem. Yeah, you can charge them, but you're going to be taking shooting from both the boat and whatever it is you charge, which will most likely be the Thunderers.
And that's only on the Ironclads. I think the frigates see more play though.
They see more play. I can see how. Like, frigates are definitely good. Bomb racks, charging mortals. I mean, KO is just a good army. They just have good trading pieces. Their heroes
Yeah.
are extremely well costed for what they do. I mean, increasing the rend on your shooters for 80 points. It's just like every time they make a hero
that's
with 80
really
points,
odd.
it breaks the game. So it's like whatever.
Yeah, it's Chemist is definitely an outlier in the army. I do think that you can do all those things, but not necessarily in the same build. Like the army doesn't always get to tech into everything.
No, but
that's-
like
that's the reason
Stormcast,
I
those,
was
those
gonna say.
builds are good individually, right? You
Yeah,
can't have it
but
all,
they're
but
doing
each
their own
build's
thing.
still good.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely an A tier. It's somewhere in A tier.
Yeah.
I think some of it might be people just haven't played against Kharadron in a while, and then some of it is like Kharadron for the longest time was just an army that dropped in a balloon and did nothing else after that. This is new. This is basically a new army.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Personally, I'd
it
put them.
seems shocking.
I
but-
would put them in lower A tier just because I think once the dust settles and people figure out the specific ways to play around the specific things that Kharadron are doing, it might not be as good as upper A tier, but that's just a guess from my part. I base that off nothing.
I think it's at least upper A, because just off the nature of shooting in this game, every time they introduce a new shooting army, especially that can do double turns really well and go into a 1-drop really well, it tends to be very dominating, regardless of like how it does eventually into what the metagame develops into. So I think at least it has to at least be upper A.
Yeah, it is extremely impressive on the double turn, for sure. It's not even a question.
Sure. Yeah, I'm willing to give it a upper A. It seems it's coming out of the gate really strong, which is great, because when I first saw the book, it wasn't obvious how you'd put the pieces together to make a good list out of it. But then
honestly, what makes this such a good book is the pieces can't come together like it does.
The whole time.
Mrigank wasn't even. Nice job, Ben.
Okay. Upper A tier seems fine. Well, since we're on the topic of new books, I'm going to bring up Slaanesh as well. Mrigank, you and I just finished recording our review for this book, and I am inclined to say that it is a lower A tier book. I think the thing is, I think it's better than both of these armies we've put in here so far, but it definitely doesn't feel as good as these 4 armies we have in the upper tier. So what makes Slaanesh good? Some of the best melee damage in the game. Maybe the best. Like, if you put the pieces together, chariots, demonettes, keepers, all of these things do absurd amounts of damage output. Invaders giving you +2 rend, +3 rend, +4 rend in some cases means you just don't care about armor. You don't even care about doing hit 6 mortals because you just cleave through everything's armor. Bliss Barbs are the best shooting unit in the game. Maybe, like, they have a downside, but for all their upsides, they're so strong.
They're
definitely up there.
Most efficient unit, maybe shooting unit of the game. I'm not sure about best shooting unit.
Well, you combine them with Bliss Barbs, or even in Pretenders if you're not playing Invaders. Like, I think both Pretenders and Invaders are both super strong. A little bit of a spoiler, in our review, we gave Invaders a little bit more of a bump. We viewed Invaders as like the best sub-faction and Pretenders just behind it.
But it's not like huge.
It's not a big no.
There's nothing wrong with either of them. They're
different styles, just different styles. That's all. All Invaders has going for it is Hurler of Obscenities. If they ever errata that so it doesn't stack with itself, it's Pretenders all the way. Like, there's no question. You'd always take Pretenders. But yeah, they've got crazy high damage. Some of the best shooting in the game. They can play competent. They have some good spells. They have good debuffs. They have good, like, really good debuffs. They can play well into a Cron Spine. They can play the range game. Their weaknesses are that everything is like paper thin, right? Aside from like a double reinforced chariot unit with Mystic Shield and all that defense, everything's on like 5s and 6s to save, poor bravery and all the mortal stuff. They don't have screens, really. That's kind of their weakness, is like everything they want to bring is so expensive that they don't end up with that like 2 units of Vanquishers that you want to just stop certain lists from running over you.
You end up using the Bliss Barb.
I have a few thoughts on everything you just said. Okay. So, I think they do have screens. I think you can tool a army in such a way where you can afford to sacrifice Bliss Barbs to a melee alpha. Because what's going to be generating depravity for you there is your melee units, and that's what you want living. So Bliss Barbs in there become screens. And if it's the other way around, then if they're shooting your Bliss Barbs, that's fine. You want your melee to survive anyway. And Bliss Barbs can counter battery fire.
Okay.
Secondly, you're right. If they nerf Hurler of Obscenities, I think Pretenders becomes a thing. And like you mentioned, because this army is so weak on 5-up and 4-up saves, they want to be taking Pretenders more because it lets them triple all-out defense. And if they have to. Or triple all-out attack, whatever you want. Their spellcasting isn't the best. But I think this is the kind of army in a lower tier, because a lot of the players that go up against it will be not as experienced Age of Sigmar players, and they'll give them the depravity dice on the temptation.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Gets its depravity engine going, it's incredibly oppressive.
Before anything else, we have to talk about that, right? As more competitive-minded players, I think we can agree on this. We will always take the D3 mortal wounds. We will never, ever, almost never give Slaanesh D6 depravity points, because Slaanesh is very much a snowball army. If it gets up to 12 depravity on round 1, the game is a lot easier for them. If they get up to 24 on round 2, it's much easier for them. Every single point of depravity they get is like, it's getting them towards that threshold. So you basically just always take the D3 mortal wounds, which effectively makes their battle trait, whenever you fail a save, take D3 mortal wounds. Whenever you fail a hit or wound, take D3 mortal wounds, right? It's pinging things off. It's like Emerald Curse, but like super jacked up Emerald Curse. And you know, if that's the baseline, if we're talking about Slaanesh, I think we have to have that in mind. And in that context, they just don't get enough depravity against really good opponents. right?
Yes.
But then we also mentioned like nobody's taking enough screens, and they really punish high wound reinforced units, especially
Yes.
ones on the front line. Like if you don't have a minimum 3 wound unit, sorry, 6 wound unit like Aether Wings or like a 10 wound unit like Vanquishers in the front, if you have something more expensive like a Gorventer unit, congratulations, you put them on 15 depravity turn 1.
Mm-hmm. And that's really bad. Yeah, they punish
Yeah.
heavy units, but they also punish MSU with the temptation dice.
Yep.
So it's
So
the problem is
I like that.
I still think there's ways to play around it. Like you if you're playing OBR, you put 10 Mortek crawlers in the charge path, right? Like there's.
I'm not saying there aren't ways to play around it, but like we're talking like the army can really get going, and they're also really good into armor because they have a lot of ways to just Ren stack.
Mm-hmm. Invaders
Yeah,
certainly is. Yeah.
For your save rolls. Yeah, and like Hurler of Obscenities will do it. Shard Speaker will do it in addition. You know, a spell will do it in addition. Yeah, Bliss Barbs will do it. Like they stacking -40 or save is not that hard for Slaanesh. I'll put it that way.
And none of it requires dice rolls either.
Midfield.
Just movement. So
Yeah.
if you have 12-inch move heroes, you just move.
Shard Speaker does. Bliss Barb Seekers sort of do with the wound having to go through like Vigilors, but I'm saying it's not hard. So if you're in the midfield, it's very hard for Slaanesh to put -3, -4 to save on just about anything they want, and that makes it better for the depravity generation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was talking hurlers. You have to have the 2-up to go off on hurlers.
Yeah, but you can take hurlers as a command trait, and the first heroic action's guaranteed. So it's a 2-up to get the third hurler, right?
Yeah. But in summation, I do agree. I think they're lower A tier for now because I don't think they're as good as Khorne. But
yeah, they're not as good.
When we nerf the S tier armies like Tzeentch, Gitz, and Lumineth, I wonder how they will shake out because that also causes a bunch of like ripple down effects.
I'm gonna make a prediction that they're gonna be the best army with the worst win rate, right? Like for an A tier army, they're gonna have like a 46-47% win rate because they get punished so heavily for every single mistake they make.
They
are very expensive. Yes. I can see that. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been playing Slaanesh the last couple of weeks, and it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you fail a critical charge or you end up out of position, it's almost game losing.
And sometimes it's not even a mistake on your part. It's just, oh, you have 30-inch long strikes. My Bliss Barbs are dead. I can't do anything about that.
Or like I played a game against Khorne, the new Khorne book, and it was a hard lose. Like it was just ridiculous. So I think A is okay. I think A is a good place for them. Probably they're probably riding that line between upper A and lower A. So
I think Robert's right. They're very weak to mortal wounds too. Like
no wards. Yep. Just
White Light or a spell bomb from Sylvaneth, and you're just not feeling good.
They're weak to both mortal wounds, like really elite damage, and they're weak to mass damage. They can't take either way.
Splash.
Yeah.
Splash damage is also really bad. They're really low bravery. All of them are like bravery 6 or 5 or something.
Bliss Barbs are 5. Yeah, it's rough.
I thought they were going to be Ideneth light because of that, but they seem to be better than Ideneth. Ironically.
Yeah, let's talk about Ideneth while we're on that topic.
Yeah, let's go Ideneth. Yeah.
They're feeling like lower B to me.
Yeah. The army is too punishing. So like Slaanesh can be punishing too, but it seems to be more effective at enabling their game plan. Whereas Ideneth, it can be really tough for them. It's really punishing to take the combos you want. You really want a lot of different things in the same list, but you can't do it. Like I really wish I could somehow combine a more fan list and still have, like my turtle do something, for example. I don't know. It just feels like
it's strange. So I have a friend who plays Ideneth. He just went 4-1 on Adepticon. No turtle, more fan. Just a bunch of thralls, 30 reavers, 12 eels, like Gillian King. And the biggest problem I think Ideneth had is they can't chew through armor.
Yep.
They're best
what do you have,
negative 2 Rend army.
2 on the charge?
Yep. They just have Rend 2, and they cannot chew through things like a 2-up save, like Kragnos, or something that's like a 2-up, 5-up. It's very, very difficult for them.
They also don't trade well, right? Because the hammer units that they have training aren't particularly durable. So like every time you kill something with Reavers, if you get hit by a good hammer, those Reavers are gone, or thralls or anything. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing. They're inefficient traders, and they're also weirdly elite for an elf army. It's like they're very comparable to Slaanesh, but Slaanesh gets very rewarded for playing properly, while Ideneth feels like you just get punished for playing wrong. Like, and there's just so many ways to exploit what Idoneth are doing. Like, they're very, very particular mechanics. They've had the same gimmicks forever, and I think people have learned to play around those gimmicks.
I think they added the rituals, but honestly, I don't. The only thing that does is saves them from like shooting alpha strikes, if anything. Like it
The
does. It
5-up
does
ward
nothing
ritual's
to.
nice with Lotan, right? Getting a second, like on round 2, you've got a 5-up ward on your Namarti after you drop a second.
It's only
bow.
Namarti, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only
It's only
Namarti.
Namarti.
I think that's
Yeah.
what they should be pivoting into, but even then, I'm thinking it's like a B tier army still. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
but then
A
you
tier.
have to
It
fit
is a B tier
Lotan.
army. Yeah, I think. I don't know about lower.
I
I
think
feel
it's
like they have a
lower.
lot of tools that with the Achillean Thrall
really
Master
punishing.
rituals.
It's red
and
1 the
this-
army, and this is
Yeah.
a 2-up save meta, which is weird, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's really fantastic that both Idoneth and Doc have fallen so low in our rankings.
Well,
when
'cause
like
they can innovate with them.
9 months ago, the internet
Oh, a
was
year
losing
ago,
its
actually.
mind. A year ago, yeah,
Yeah.
everyone was losing their minds.
Yeah, everyone was
It's
losing
they
their
didn't,
mind.
they didn't innovate with them. That's the thing. Everyone's getting now. This is the year where everyone's getting new mechanics, and DOK Idoneth have remained the same.
Idoneth got power crept. Daughters of Cain got nerfed.
Yep.
Daughters of Cain definitely just took nerfs.
Yep. Everything except for Marathi's command ability in that book was a straight up nerf to what it had been.
When they could have just nerfed the command ability and not nerfed.
Yeah, they could have just nerfed the command ability, and the book would have been fine. Yep.
And I
Yeah.
think
It's
I
just-
think we predicted this happening with Idoneth, is that because they're not the highest damage output army, and like they're fast, but they're not like Ironjawz fast. Like they were like a little bit above average in a few things, but all their weaknesses were so obvious that eventually they would just get power crept up. I think we specifically called this when we were doing our how to counter Idoneth video.
They're also weirdly elite, like you said. Like all the heroes are good because they all have like a native 5-up or whatever. But the points just you're sometimes stuck at like weirdly like 1890 or 1910
Yeah.
points, and there's nothing more you can take in that army. It's like feels like old OBR
We should
list
make the
building.
Gloomtide cost points. That would fix it.
Oh, the Gloomtide.
Okay.
Ooh, we have a request for the
Sure.
next army.
What do you got, Dan?
Yeah.
Robert's getting the evil eye, so orcs.
Okay.
Orcs.
So we got to break this down because we keep saying we're going to break
Yes.
this down. We are not leaving orcs. We're leaving them in D tier until we talk about all the subfactions in them. All 4.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Bone Splitters are D tier. I think that's the only D tier army.
Yes.
It's an infantry
Unfortunately.
meta, but they don't have the rend or the bodies or the damage to get through it.
Okay.
So I think Bone Splitters are D tier. Maybe it's a lack of experience against them. They're really uncommon, but part of the reason they're uncommon is because they might not be very good, right? So that's certainly
Mhm.
a data point to consider. I would like to be proven wrong about Bone Splitters. Let's say that. What about Cruel Boys? Where do we think Cruel Boys land right now?
Oh,
C tier.
lower B or C?
Honestly, C tier. Robert's like, wait, no.
I do feel like Cruel Boys feel like C.
I think it's a
They
C
can
tier.
only play shooting with
Yep.
Grid and Blades. Everything else is not good enough, and they just get outdone by every other shooting army because they can all teleport or are super fast and can just get in that range. And then the melee armies just overwhelm them, and their damage output isn't high enough, and their durability is like trash.
Yeah, this should have been tricks, the army, combat tricks, and weird debuffs and stuff. Instead, it's bad Lumineth because everything revolves around their mortal wounds. Because their damage is
Very
crap
bad
unless you're
Lumineth.
doing rolling 6s and 5s or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Even the shooting armies that they would naturally have an advantage against, you'd think Lumineth, Stormcast, Kharadron, it's really just ogres that they get around. But like all of the other shooting armies just teleport or run fast into shooting range, and they're not too concerned about it. The stationary 24-inch threat range is just terrible.
Yeah, and I mean they honestly perform better when you take them outside of Cruel Boys. When you take either the Regiment or Renown or like in Big Wall, like we're gonna
Or
talk
Big
about.
Wah. Yeah, I was about to say. I think Big Wah is like the next best thing.
Right. So
I think
let's
Big Wah is,
let's
like,
do
upper B.
let's do
Oh, do you wanna do
Ironjawz,
Ironjawz?
and then
Okay,
we'll
for
put it all together with Big Wah. So Ironjawz, in my opinion, is an upper B tier army. I think they're solid. I think they can just take games away from you if you're not prepared for it. And they do it so decisively and so much better than every other army that does this melee combat. But they're not just a rushing army. You know, they are not just trying to charge you turn 1. They can play back. They have the mobility to pick the exact moment where they want to engage. They can get around strike first effects, doing crazy stuff like charging in the hero phase. Like let's say you teleport your Makrusha, you fast stun to get within 3 inches, you Mighty Destroyers to charge, and then in the movement phase you retreat. Then in combat phase you can pile in normally because you made a charge move this turn. and this is how you can get around strike first effects, all by just like moving back and forth with enemies.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to play. There's like 5 different levels of Ironjawz play, and when you see like level 4 and level 5, like the top tier players playing Ironjawz, it's honestly like an A tier army, but I'm gonna like average it out at upper B tier.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it'll average out for sure.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
agreed. I got totally caught out by the teleport the Gorgruntas outside of 12, Mighty Destroyers them outside of 3, charge, kill the screen, and then the Bloodtoofs getting to charge again at the end of the combat phase into my cannons and whatnot. I was just like, whoa, what?
Yeah, that's like a level 3. There's still even more that they can do past that.
Yeah, there's other tricks.
And when they declare the WA, their entire army's on -3 rend. I mean,
it's
hard to. It's hard to complain about that. So
they definitely feel better than all the other B tier armies that we placed, but they're not. I think they're better than Slaves. You guys disagree, but I do think they are a better army than Slaves.
I don't know.
I think that Slaves is better because I think Slaves has more builds and more.
I think Slaves has better defense. I think it's very easy to also alpha Ironjawz. That's
the Splintered Fang Slaves are better than Ironjawz, but then the regular Slaves are not. I think that's my 2 cents.
So here's how I see it. How can I easily alpha? Is this easier for me to alpha 6 Gorgruntas because I've done this with Annihilators with my Annihilator build, or is it easier to alpha 10 Nurgle Chosen? And I think it's 6 Gorgruntas are way easier to kill.
Sure. But consider Ironjawz is, unless you're playing against like deep strike charges, Ironjawz just deploy as far back as they want. They've got the range to charge from almost any distance.
Well, I'm just talking about like the field in general. Like,
sure.
Because
if they get hit, they get punished.
Yeah. Yes, if Ironjawz gets hit first by anything or slowed down or anything, they just like they're absolutely punished.
Or mess with
absolutely bravery. Murders them.
One thing I really like about Ironjawz is that their heroes don't randomly explode. That's a great thing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's okay. The thing. That's why I think Slaves is slightly higher.
So Bone Splitters D, Cruel Boys C, Ironjawz upper A. What about Big Wa? How are we feeling about that? And Robert, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat as well.
I think as long as Wargogs can't be shot, if they get the double on you, the game's over.
Okay.
If you have 2 Wargog prophets in range,
it's over.
It's over.
And how does that translate into a tier ranking for your Mrigank?
I think that translates into lower A tier.
I think they're a lower A tier. I think Big One's actually got a lot of play, and it's just so few people that play it.
Yeah.
It's just not popular enough. And thank God it is.
It's like one of the armies that's like, it has all the weird, stupid tools of the other armies, but just in the right ways. Like, it's got the Cruel Boy Poison. If it takes Gorgruntas in a Mega Boss, it's got the Mighty Destroyer double move. So like they can do these neat things across different armies where you don't have the full experience, but they can do just enough to where it matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. That's good enough.
Okay. So for people who don't know what makes the Wargog so good or what Big Wa even does, can you break down what makes this combo so strong? Because Wargog is a Bone Splitters model, right? So we're saying Bone Splitters is garbage, but apparently you use the same model in a different allegiance, and it's now like A tier, S tier. Like, how good is this thing? So why is it so much better?
It's got something called I can't remember the rule name. I think it's called like laser vision because that's what I call it. At the start of your hero phase,
what is it? The Bad Eye of War.
An enemy unit within 12, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. And you can keep doing this because if you don't roll a 3, then you take D3 mortal wounds. Oh, sorry, D6 mortal wounds. But what you can do is you can take an artifact of the Wargog Prophet that gives it like a better ward.
That's boring.
And you can give it fueled by Girth Rage so it gets back up. So you can keep doing this. So you point at something it's like a 170 point model, and I've literally seen it look at a Kragnos and go, okay, I'm just gonna keep staring at you. It just kills a Kragnos.
It killed the 2 block of my dragons with the ward up.
It killed a Kragnos, and then I saw it killed a Gargant, died, got back up with Girth Rage, killed another Gargant. So it's like, okay.
So what is it about Big Wa that makes it so good as opposed to just Bone Splitters? Because wouldn't it logically be just as good in Bone Splitters? What is it about Big Wa that's such a huge difference?
So the problem is Bone Splitters as a general army doesn't have a lot of rend. And also the hit rolls and wound rolls are absolute crap because they rely on exploiting 6s. So a lot of their armies like 3s and 4s, 4s and 3s, 4s and 4s. But when you start to tech into other parts of the Auric armies, and you start to tech into their main rules, for instance, you take Poison with Cruel Boys with like 6 Blood Boys. You take Mega Boss, you take a War Chanter, and you take 6 Gorgruntas. Now you have essentially the Ironjawz experience without the rend bonus monster game. And that adds up. That's pretty good. And as you're generating the big wall points and bonuses, your army gets better. They eventually get a +1 to charge. They get a +1 to hit all across the entire army. So it's like imagine if we gave up some allegiance abilities. Like imagine if we gave up Signs of the Storm and we took Cities of Sigmar Coalition, but we also brought along some of their allegiance abilities with them.
Oh, so what,
Like,
Stormkeep,
really good.
but good. That's what
It's like Tempest Eye, right? Like
Stormkeep, but good.
I
Yes,
could bring
exactly.
Tempest Eye.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you get the power of the War Scroll interactions, and you get just enough of the allegiance abilities to where a soup is really, really powerful if you know how to play it right. Unfortunately, there are very few people. Robert is one of them. Actually, he's a really good player.
Yeah, Robert's
So
really good.
It's basically you take a good model and you, like from Stormcast, you take a 4-block of Drakes and you put it in Tempest Eye or
It's Cities of
Hallowheart or
Sigmar,
something.
yeah.
Okay. So I think
Well,
people
it's
can
not
understand.
exactly like that, but it's not exactly like that. It's like imagine if there was a Stormcast Regiment or Renown that IDNET could take that said you can take 6 Raptors and they have Signs of the Storm. That'd be really good.
If
Yeah,
if
that'd be-
Warwick clans could ally in the other Warwick clans, would you still play Big Wa, or would you play like Ironjawz and then bring a bunch of Prophets?
Oh, that's probably why they can't ally them in, because they
Yeah,
want people to play Big Wall. Because otherwise, everyone would just play Ironjawz
Big
plus
Wall
like
boys.
whatever is broken, like Murgok
Yeah.
Prophet or
No, what I'm
whatever.
getting at is it specifically the Big Wa abilities that are making it good, or is it this unit just in a better army than the one that it's normally from?
A lot of things.
It's a bit of both. It's
Yeah,
a bit of
it's
both.
a lot of
The
things.
Big Wall table is actually like if you go read it, it's actually fairly easy to generate like Wa points because I'm pretty sure it's like um yeah, so you'd receive Wa points for like heroes and like doing stuff, I think. Yeah, if there's any War Chanters on the field, if there's any Bone Splitters, Wizards on the field, if you have Generals on the field, you get D6. If you finish a charge for each Auric unit, you get 1 point for each unit. At the end of the combat phase for each unit, that's within 3 of a unit. And the bonuses get really good.
They are very
10
strong.
Wa points here, +1 to charge, +1 to casting at 12, +1 to hit at 16, +1 to wound at 20, and then
Plus one to
add
wound
one to
army
the attack
wise.
characteristic
You
at
get access to all the spell lords,
Yeah.
right? Like you'll be able to get like nasty hacks and turn off wards, for example.
yeah, you get the wards from like the spells from like whatever I guess wizard you're taking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You
Pretty
can't
sure.
have like a war chanter do.
Yeah. So in the end, that puts Auric War clans in lower A overall, right? I think the arguments that we've had for Big Wa and I think my arguments for
Ironjawz.
Ironjawz should put that book as a whole, the book, in lower A. But then obviously Bone Splitters is D tier on its own because you need the other stuff to make the Wargog worth using, and then Cruel Boys is a C tier army.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Works for me. Jack, your pick is up next. There's not a lot left on the board.
Let's do Soulblight.
Okay. Where would you think Soulblight would go?
I put Soulblight at like upper B, lower B, right in that range.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
I think that it's. I think I would rather start in upper B and then get knocked down.
Okay. Why do you think it is an upper B army? Because we've been calling it consistently C tier throughout our videos.
Yeah, I think that in the hands of someone who really understands how to make that army work, it works very well. I've played it and had a lot of success with it. So,
I
Okay.
think you can say that about a lot of armies right now in this meta, though.
yeah, you can. It does all the things that I don't know.
It just doesn't seem
I
to
also
fit
really
them
like
as well.
vampires.
I think.
I'll explain why they're upper B. Okay, so they're an army that needs to get its magic buffs up. Like the list we just saw that Jeremy Veysseire ran. A lot of people try to do something similar, or they try to gum up the board with direwolves instead of skeletons or zombies. It's a matter of preference. But the way Soulblight really wins is they get their spells off, they get their units on unrendable, or they do silly stuff like debuff you to hell, create a direwolf somewhere, turn your things into direwolves, and gum up the wards with lots of resurrecting wounds and healing wounds. And when they do that, they're good against the armies they can't do that against because either the things are too high wound value or just have overwhelming offense that just cuts through everything they have. That they're bad. So it really comes down to who's in a position to really unbind what Soulblight is trying to do and then pick off key units. And in that sense, they can beat any of the B tier, lower B tier armies, or upper, and sometimes even upper B tier armies, because so it's just a matter of like, what is this good against? And So yeah, I could easily put them in B tier upper. Even like it might be a bit of a stretch, but A tier lower.
I think they hang in the upper B tier. Then when you put it that way, I do think they beat the lower B tier armies, but I don't think that they beat the lower A tier armies, and I don't think
I mean
they
that's fair. Yeah,
beat
like
the
I don't
upper
think they
B
beat
tier
anything
armies
that has any
enough.
serious shooting. Like I don't think they beat like Slanesh because Slanesh will just like shoot everything else and generate. It's like, oh, you're not dying. Okay, fine. I'll just generate depravity off
Oh,
of
it's
you
even
if you
it's
try to heal back.
it's even better because if you shoot zombies who don't have a save, they still have to roll the save roll.
God,
So every
make a
single
roll.
time you
Yeah.
shoot zombies, you can force them to take another D3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's like, oh, if you have a ton of wounds and you're just gumming up the board with 20 direwolves, that's just depravity farm for me.
Yeah.
In Slanesh.
Mhm.
So I think those armies, yes. And then mortal wounds are obviously a problem, which is where Slaves wins because Chosen going twice into like even unrendable Blood Knights will just do like a ton of damage on like, 60 dice, just like rolling just tons of attacks.
I
So
think
yeah, I think they're upper B. Upper B.
I think they would be lower B. I think their magic is too inconsistent for them to reliably get it off against, especially the meta that we're facing right now with Tzeentch and Lumineth as the top tier armies. That's really really rough, and people are starting to tech into their magic. I think every A tier army would have a pretty good shot at beating Soulblight. And they would beat the armies that we've put lower than that. But I think their matchups aren't good enough right now. And again, this is like minor granularity, like upper or lower B tier. They're definitely B tier. I would agree with that. I think they're on the same tier as like Nighthaunt and Ironjawz. They're not something I consider when I'm list building. I know how to play around them. They have very specific limitations on a lot of things, and then there's a lot of dice rolling involved. They even when they build around it, it's still not reliable enough. I'm not generally considering them a high threat, so I put them in that same thing as like Nighthaunt and Ironjawz right now.
That's
Fair
fair.
enough. I do think they beat all of those, but they can still be
Yeah,
in there
I think
and beat all of them.
yeah, I think they are very specific threat ranges though, because I was kind of
Yeah.
excited about Castellite Dynasty for a second because they could deep strike on board edges with Blood Knights, which I thought would matter. But Blood Knights never got the charge bonus like I was thinking they would. So it's like, okay.
If Blood Knights were 12-inch move instead of 10-inch, I would have no problem calling them upper B tier. I think it's
or
that
minus
that
2 rend.
or minus
Or
2
minus
rend.
2
Some
rend.
small
Or
buff to
2
Blood
rend.
Knights, but it's
On
just
the charge,
because
imagine.
all they do is anvil, and you can't win the game by being an anvil. You still have to do damage, and this army has trouble projecting its power properly.
Yep. Also, it has no 5 of wards really, other than a couple of heroes. So like Blood Knights will still die to something that does mass mortal wounds.
Yeah, so I think they're a lower B tier army personally.
To
But
answer
if they're
Spagwag, I think they do beat Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they
They
do.
just debuff them and what you call it? They can recur better.
the Crypt Horror build would actually do well into Soulblight, right? I think that would do really well. Except
I think Soulblight just has unlimited screens compared to Feck.
Yeah,
Like
They do.
Soulblight screens,
for sure.
yeah, like skeletons, zombies, and direwolves occupy way more space than Feck does. So Soulblight can very effectively deploy its hammer Blood Knight unit wherever it wants to.
Flesh Eaters definitely
Great
picks
Blood.
that engagement though, right? Soulblight has this problem where they're just not fast enough to engage on any army. Every other army can just go faster and better than Soulblight. They're always playing on the back foot, and if they don't, like, there's so much dice rolling, like even just not just the casting, but like the resurrect rolls for Battle Shock, right? Those are so crucial. If you make one of those every game or every single round, that's such a different game than if you fail every single one. It's really really swingy, and the lack of consistency there, I think, is another point towards it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say one thing that's definitely brought down Soulblight a lot is the a lot of effects canceling out Inspiring Presence lately, like Gargant's, Shrieker,
Nighthaunt,
Orghast. There's a
Geminids,
whole ton of them.
or not Geminids.
Nighthaunt, yeah.
Slanesh can just
Tide
shut that
Shrieker,
off.
Slanesh.
Orghast, yeah. All those effects have definitely brought Soulblight down a ton.
They are
Yeah,
very
Guardians was like a guaranteed win for them because they could just like keep resurrecting and putting more
Yeah.
models there. But now without Inspiring Presence, it's like, okay, oof.
okay. Mrigank, your turn to pick an army, and we are coming up to 3 hours on the stream, so let's not spend
Let's
too
do
much time.
hurry up. All right. Yeah, let's do New Beast of Chaos.
Okay. What do you think?
Ooh,
Where do they start?
Oh, upper B.
Upper B?
really?
I think. Okay. Hear me out. This is just a hunch. I mean, I could be wrong about this.
Mhm.
I think what Beast of Chaos is doing is very new. I think what people aren't used to fighting a null deploy army. People aren't used to like what they're doing and the little like tricks they have. I think once you figure out how to counter this army, it gets a lot easier. So they might be behaving like an lower A tier right now, but I think once people figure them out, but we said the same thing for KO.
That's what I
I
was
think
about
they
to say.
can
Okay.
easily fall into B tier. Like they have the tools to like damage a lot of the armies that like to play a very like cagey. They can really kill fragile wound heroes through their heroic actions, and then they have Bulgors, which on a double will just bulldoze your line from like one point.
That's on a double,
So-
though. I think what Kharadron do is so impactful, they don't need the double.
Yeah, Kharadron can do it
Sure,
regardless.
sure.
Yeah.
And then the double is like crazy good for them. Whereas I think Beasts is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they have some gimmicks, and I think once people figure the gimmicks out through, they're not super popular, so maybe people won't figure out the gimmicks well enough. But when you
It's actually super popular, but
they?
now people have way more models than they used
Yeah.
to because armies like weirdly elite now, and like it
You don't
doesn't summon
use any
anymore.
models. Yeah.
And like it just plays way different. than it
Maybe
used
it's
to.
just my area. I don't see any Beast players. But I think upper B is about right for them. They have good gimmicks, but I think once people figure out the gimmicks, it's kind of like an Ironjawz type scenario.
Yeah. I think Mrigank's right on it. It's like KO, but I think that a lot of people might feel them as lower A tier, and I think they fall down into maybe upper B once you figure it out.
Okay, so
Cool.
we'll place them there for now with the caveat that they could be a little bit better. They're not a bad army by any means.
No.
Their gimmick is very defined. Okay, my turn. I'm gonna say Seraphon, and I'm gonna slam him in C tier because I'm really not impressed with this army right now. I tried building some lists the other day. Everything's so expensive. The damage output is just not there anymore because everything's so expensive. You have fewer and fewer units. I feel funneled into like Saurus Knights and then Skink Hammers, and then it's like if the Star Priest dies, the game is just over. Like I don't do any damage. Maybe I'm just like taking the doom pill on this, but like they feel awful
The stats
right now.
support it too, if it makes you feel any better. But yeah,
A big part of that is everyone's just waiting for the new book. They just gave up. So maybe it's just I'm being too down on them. They feel really awful. Maybe they're stronger than this. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. Any
I
arguments?
don't care enough to argue. I'll be honest with that, Seraphon. I've faced them too many times. I just had too many games against them. I'm just waiting for the new book. I couldn't care less what the list book has to offer anymore.
Okay. Well, I don't think they're worse than anything we put in B tier, so I'm gonna stick them in there. But I'm not stoked on it. I really have high hopes for the new book. Put it that way. Dan, you're up. 5 armies left.
Sylvaneth.
Okay.
I have to pick Sylvaneth here.
Okay.
I think Sylvaneth has proven themselves in upper A tier. They've been consistently doing well enough.
The stats certainly do support it. How do you think Sylvaneth will fare into New Khorne, New Slaanesh, and New Kharadron?
I think they handle New Khorne just fine. They can put obstacles in their way well enough and recur. They've got enough armor because New Khorne doesn't have like the most rend in the world. So I think Sylvaneth can handle that. They've got strike first tricks that can handle, like if you're striking first against the strike first, you still get to strike first. So I think that they can handle that with like Lancers, for example. So that's something that they can tech into, that they can actually handle Khorne.
On that
Because
particular
that, I mean,
point,
they have a
I think
decent
I push
enough
back
game
on
plan.
that because Khorne with the Halo of Blood just ignores the Tree Lord Stomp offensively, right? Like you just charge in and you're
Right,
fine.
right.
You don't even care about the Tree Lords, and all the mortal wounds being done by Bloodletters it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of mortal wounds. I'd have to. I think that matchup would have to depend on whether or not prayers get through the woods if they require line of sight. I think most of them do require line of sight.
They do.
Skull
Yeah.
Cannons require line of sight, so I think Sylvaneth. Yeah, I think they could have a good matchup into that.
Oh, they can.
Well,
And I was
Tree
talking
Lords
about
can't
they can
hide in
strike first on
woods.
the charge. Is what I was talking about with Sylvaneth.
Yeah, but that's just that one unit. I don't know how good
That unit's pretty good.
Is it seeing a lot of play right now? Because I always felt it was like a second string unit after some of their good stuff.
Lancers are good. Lancers.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Lancers
the
okay.
Lancers are very good.
Okay.
So and I'm
Um,
saying, like, if you're seeing a ton of Khorne, like you can easily just tech into that. It's not a bad pick by any means.
Khorne, I think, has the movement because Sylvaneth likes to play like corner and then try to hit you with shooting. I think Khorne has enough screens with like Reavers and Garrick's Reavers and all that stuff that just generates more blood type for them.
That's fair
So
too, is the blood type. But they can
yeah,
also
and
hit
like
that block very easily. If you're running those bloodletters, they can hit that block pretty easily and not proc the Bloodmaster to fight first.
I think
Sure.
Sylvaneth just stays out of that kill zone I was describing, the like 18 to 20 inch that you just stay
Yeah.
in that safe zone and then you just keep charging in and teleporting out. I think you'll be fine there. I think they're going to have a lot more trouble against Sylvaneth because -1 attack effects are disgustingly good against Sylvaneth. They really struggle into doing any damage into Sylvaneth. Reactively, the Keeper just whipping things and giving them -1 attack. You've got that artifact that anytime you're within 6 of the Keeper, you have -1 attack. Kurnoth Hunters on 1 attack apiece, or Seekers on 1 attack apiece per model. It's terrible. That you're not doing any damage to Slaanesh.
Can you teleport out of combat with that once return ability Sylvaneth have?
What?
Can you teleport out of combat with that once per turn ability Sylvaneth have?
Strike and Fade?
No, not Strike and Fade. The other one that lets them like teleport to any wildwood or place of power on the battlefield.
I think that's instead of making a normal move, right?
Yeah, that's instead of making a normal move, I thought.
Oh, okay. So you can't teleport
Yeah.
out of combat. So there, I could see someone getting targeted by like Skull Crushers.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
So, but I don't know how much like this Skull Crusher tar pit is going to be beyond,
It's going to be popular.
people's first thought.
It's going to be
think?
Oh, it's
popular.
gonna be popular. It's in the
I mean,
Vanguard
people like
box,
it a
man.
lot, but
People-
I guess it's going to
people
be
buy-
popular. But
We haven't
Plus,
talked about that at all.
We haven't talked about this. A, the Skull Crusher. B, a lot of people will buy lots of Blood Warriors. There's people making a lot of 20 Blood Warrior lists with Korgo's Cool. And it's like, if Kurnoth go into those and try to kill like, I don't know, 10, 12 Blood Warriors, that's like, you're talking about 12, 24, 36 murder rolls.
it's a lot of wounds. Yeah, Sylvaneth
Yeah.
can't deal high wound value. That's for sure.
Yeah,
can't
and they
take
can't
those
strike
ones
and fade
either.
before that murder effect goes through. So
Mm.
that'll hurt.
And then Kharadron, I think Kharadron would do well into Sylvaneth. They don't really care that much
Oh,
about
yeah.
the stomp. You just barge your ships into their woods and you shoot everything down.
Yep. You basically put an Arcanaut Company screen, and if they charge, you unleash hell into them with thunderers.
I think Sylvaneth are certainly an A-tier army. We've been putting them near the bottom of A-tier for a while. The stats are benefiting them. I'm inclined to put them in lower. What do you guys think?
That's fair enough.
That
Okay.
seems good.
I think you made a strong case for them, Dan.
There's a lot of skilled people that play Sylvaneth. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
players, Sylvaneth is a very high skill expression army for sure.
I think right now, before these 3 new books are introduced, Sylvaneth would be a higher A-tier army. But because these other books are existing and they all seem to have the tools to deal with Sylvaneth and their particular jankiness, I think that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, Jack, you're up next. 4 left.
All right, I'll do Stormcast.
All right, where do you start?
I was gonna leave it to the end. I think Stormcast are a lower A, like an A minus.
Okay. Why not B and why not higher?
Because they have enough versatility to be able to deal with most of the B tier armies, right? Like most of our Stormcast builds end up being combined arms. And so most of the B tier armies either lose into really effective melee or they lose into really effective shooting, and Stormcast have both.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that at our current point value and efficiency, it's a struggle. It's an uphill fight to start taking the really top tier armies.
I think the top tier armies are.
Jack said.
I think the Stormcast have better matchups into the A tier and S tier armies than other armies do. Especially the new
It's
ones like
not-
Kharadron, Khorne, and Slaanesh all look pretty good for us.
I'll put another spin on that. It's not a bad matchup, but it's not a great matchup.
Yeah, we
It's-
seem to have
I think
very
that's the
middling
difference.
matchups all
It's
around.
never
I think
it's
the
never
problem
terrible
is-
and it's never great.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like I can confidently say that against Ironjawz we have a great matchup, right? But I can't necessarily say that against something like Tzeentch or like Ogres always, because the fundamental problem is when you lack allegiance abilities and you rely on solid war scrolls and being able to do precise things, there's a lot that can go wrong. And we don't have allegiance abilities that mitigate that in some ways. Like
Anything that plays
we can't
bonus Warhammer
mitigate
is-
we can't necessarily mitigate Aurora in Hammers of Sigmar. We can't mitigate the fact that they have like 16 wounds on a 3-up save and 5-up ward. That's really, it's not that easy to get through. So lacking those tools means we will never have a terrible matchup because our war scrolls are good and our stats are good, but it means we'll also like never have a great matchup because some saves go above average and the game is instantly lost. It's happened to me so many times, right? Like I charged with my Annihilators hoping to delete a Melusai Iron Scale with like 7 more wounds and she has 3 wounds left. Tom Gohan rolled 6 6s. Okay, that game is instantly over. I have no other things that I can do to try and mitigate that, like as
Well,
far as
that's-
this game state goes.
That's that's Annihilators. That's one of the problems they have, right?
But
Yeah.
but do you know what I'm saying? That's
I
like
do.
a very
Yeah, yeah,
recurring theme.
Mhm.
That's like a recurring theme. So I don't think we're bad. I think we're definitely lower A tier for sure. Like we can't be below A. We just have
Yeah,
way too many
we're
good
on the
tools in
same
shooting and melee. But
level.
we just don't have those like small like micromanaging good command traits, roles, mount traits and whatever to try and mitigate the layers of defenses and debuffs that the other armies have. And we need to be able to do that eventually.
I think the lists that we build here are upper A tier lists. For sure. They beat Sylvaneth, they beat Slaves, they beat Ironjawz, they beat Nurgle, they beat Slanesh.
Well, I think it's more like I think you and Dan are upper A tier players.
Maybe.
I mean,
I think
you're
in the hands of a good
definitely-
player, Stormcast can go really far.
It
Like
was number one Stormcast again last year.
I don't like I can't put Stark Pister's list in the hands of like some Stormcast players that
No,
I
but-
know. Like no offense to them, but they're they're great people. I love playing with them. They're my friends. But
No, and
I
that's
can't just put that
Stark's-
list in their hands and
Yeah,
be like,
absolutely.
okay, yeah, no, go, play
Yeah,
this.
and that's a great example, Mrigank, because Stark's list is like the quintessential example of what I'm talking about.
It's really
It is it's a fantastic list, but
Mhm.
you have to know the right move at every single decision point to be
Yeah.
successful.
And it's the exact opposite of the slaves thing we mentioned. Like if it's so easy to make a slaves list that is lower A tier, it's very hard to make a Stormcast list and play it that is upper A tier.
That is upper.
So I
yeah.
think
Certainly.
lower A tier is as far as they go.
With our bias in mind,
Yes.
I think given how we know what the potential of Stormcast is, I think it's okay to call it upper A tier. With the caveat that for most players,
don't
that's
know.
not the case.
I can't
We
do it.
average it out, it would be lower A. I
Yeah,
guarantee.
averaged out, I have to go lower A.
I'm
It's
going to be
just-
outvoted on this one like daughters, but okay. That's okay. All right. So that was Jack's pick. So then it goes to Mrigank.
Oh damn.
We got cities, Gargants, and Skaven left.
Did we already pick Piece of Chaos, or did we place that already?
did,
I think
yeah.
we did, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. Let's go with the Skaven. Yeah, let's do Skaven.
Okay. Where do you think Skaven
Skaven's an
land?
interesting one.
Skaven, I think
I think Skaven
Oh,
are
retail army.
Stormcast, but worse.
yes.
So whatever
I think
Stormcast
Skaven-
are, Skaven are -1.
I agree.
Yes, I think Skaven are upper B.
Agreed.
But the thing
Yeah,
is,
it's
I also think Skaven are lower A. I think they have the potential to be a very strong army in the right hands. So I would shift both of these up by 1, but that's just me.
I would
Fair enough,
put
but-
Skaven, if I could, in between the lines of A lower and B tier upper, but I would put them before Dards of Cain. I would just
Yeah,
shift
I would put-
Skaven all the way to the left and be like,
Skaven are
Yeah.
definitely better than everything in B tier. We can't
They
deny
are,
that.
yeah.
but they don't have as great of matchups into the
You
upper.
guys are just Stormcast haters. I knew it.
It is what it is.
I think Skaven do up. They have the tools. They're a very Johnny army. They have these builds and these tricks they do that just catch people off guard. Like Rat Ogres resurrecting with a Master Motor Pack, rattling guns hiding inside clan rats and being in sharpshooters to kill all your heroes. Thankful going up and just warp lightning firing a bunch of your hordes. Vermin Lord Corruptors reducing your Ren by 3 Ren, reducing your saves and just
Yeah.
murdering everything. They can do a lot of neat stuff like this, but if you're
You
like a
can't do it all on
smart
the
player,
same list.
yeah.
That's
And
the thing.
if you're a smart player, you can avoid this, and
Yeah.
people do. So I think they consistently go 4-1 a lot, but I've rarely ever seen a finalist Skaven list for that reason.
Mhm.
So I think you know what? But I think I'm in the mood to be a bit generous. I think they definitely are lower A tier, even if they are at the bottom end of lower A tier. I
All
think
right,
they're
that means I'm
definitely
moving Stormcast up 1.
No.
No, yeah.
I think that we're I
Fine.
think we're at the same place. I think
Alright.
the same place. I think with great players, you can jump them to upper A tier, both
Yeah.
Skaven and Stormcast.
That's usually what I'm thinking of when I'm trying to make these rankings. Is how does a really good player do?
Well,
with this
no,
army?
like we have to also average it out, right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
just
like
talk
we
about the
try
best
to
players in the
take
world.
everything into account.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
frustrating. It's frustrating that
know.
we're being sandbagged here.
I mean, some people would argue it's like, why are we an A tier army when we have a 46% win rate? But it's like, let's be real. We're also the only army that's ever getting nerfed when we're below 50% win rate. It says a lot about our army.
Can't wait to see how we get nerfed this week.
Oh yeah. We'll see what the next round is. I think dragons go to what 380.
Yeah, we'll see.
bruh.
All right. Gargants or cities. I'm gonna do cities, and I'm actually gonna call them upper B because I feel like the builds that are really good with that army are exceptionally good. I feel like Tempest Eye is very strong. Hollowheart's still good. Hammerhall is actually decent, right? If you play against a good Hammerhall list, like it smashes pretty hard. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
I
good
think
stuff in cities, and the only thing holding it back is that nobody has the models for it. It would
yeah,
probably even be an A tier army if more people had the models for it.
I honestly think it would be A tier. I think even some of the worst cities, like Hammerhall, is something people don't play, but if you played it with Cities of Stormcast, it's actually insanely good.
Yup, really
It's
good.
straight up Stormkeep. It's straight up Stormkeep, but better.
Double tapping
Um,
like fulminators is disgusting.
Not just double tapping. You have your little like general guy on like a 2-up save. He has an aura of like reroll wound rolls and +1 to hit. It's insane. It's like my whole army's hitting on 2s and rerolling wound rolls of 1. Like what?
If we're talking
Okay.
potential here, cities is definitely an A tier army.
Yeah, and I think like Jeremy's like probably the only outlier I've seen who doesn't ally any Stormcast unit because he relies so much on Phoenix Guard and just tanking it on objectives.
Mm.
But I think Cities of Stormcast is just insanely good if people have the models to play it.
Yep. Yeah, Tempest Eye. Gosh, Tempest. They can even take Karazai and make Karazai amazing, like without having to
+2 to
jump
move,
through so
+1
many
to save in the
moves,
first
like-
battle round. Just unleash Helling on 3s and 2s. Like what the hell?
+3
Come on.
move, not +2.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
+2.
Yeah,
Imagine
it's even
plus
better.
only +2,
Imagine.
+3.
Yeah.
And they could just bring wild mages, wild form battle mages. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just a regular
Yeah.
unit in their army.
Yeah.
They just have it.
All right, last army, Gargants. Where are we putting them?
It's really funny
B.
'cause
I
their
think
army is
they're
still, like,
it's Ironjawz. Like it's like a gatekeeper in a weird way, but I think it's
Yeah.
a B tier army.
Upper or lower?
upper easily, not lower. It's not lower.
Upper.
It's upper. Dude, there's a
Everyone
lot
can
of
beat
play in.
Gargants, but yeah, a smart
Dude,
Gargant player who knows how to sequence their finest hours and everything will probably do better. So B tier
So,
up.
so
Oh,
now
yeah.
we're ranking it based on what the best players do. Okay, well,
No,
let me
no,
just
but we're
slide
averaging
this.
it out here. Because some really good Gargant players could do some A tier plays and everything.
Yeah,
I
I think
just
B tier upper is fine.
Yeah.
I think B tier upper is
Okay.
there's no way they're lower than that for
So
sure.
It's
there,
also some like insanely swingy like Timmy's shit they can do, like 46 mortal wounds on the Gatebreaker or something.
Dude, have you seen people? Have you seen how they handle incarnates? Like, there's some awesome stuff they can do.
so there is no army that is C tier or worse right now in the game. Is basically the conclusion we're coming from this, and that's
Well, no,
awesome.
no, we do. We have them down there. They're just Oryx. And
yeah, Cruel Boys and Bone Splitters. That's right, the Phantom
Yeah.
ones that don't have an extra icon for them. But in terms of books, like if you're looking at battle tomes, there's no C tier battle tome right now. Even the second
I don't
edition
think
battle
so.
tomes.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's just a testament to how good the game is right now. And
Yeah.
you know, we could make an argument to shift our scale down, but I just really don't want to because I don't think it speaks to like the actual balance of the game.
Yeah,
I
because
think it speaks to the balance of the game that we have to divide A tier and B tier in order to have some meaningful conversations because so many of these factions are in effectively 2-letter tiers.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's just like kudos to the design team. This has not happened in a long time, but they really are nailing it with these books.
Yeah.
the takeaway from this, the big takeaway, I think, is that the game is so balanced that player skill matters more than anything else.
Yeah.
Even
100%.
especially
Yes.
the S tier armies, even then player skill is the bigger contributing factor. And that was not the case at the start of 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. That was not the case in 2nd edition Age of Sigmar. Certainly not the case in the 1st edition, where it was just whoever has the most horrors on the table by the end of the game wins. Age of Sigmar is in the best state it's ever been. That said, it's not the most fun it's ever been. I actually am having less fun right now than I was at other times because of very specific mechanics, right? That's not a discussion I want to have right now, but in terms of balance, the game is doing phenomenal. Players can pick any army and have a reasonably good chance of going 5-0 at a GT if they're good enough, if they're dedicated enough, if they build it properly, and then still, like, you need that little bit of luck to go 5-0 always. 4-1, that's the standard, and there's more A-tier armies now than there've ever been before, and that's awesome.
I'll echo that. I think game is very balanced. I think some of the top armies, like especially Tzeentch and maybe Lumineth, are just not fun to fight. Like they're just exhausting. When you're done with that game, you're like, I just need like a 20-minute breather and go drink a coffee and take a walk or like take a short nap because it's just mentally exhausting to play them. But other than that, it's like yeah, a lot of the when you fight all these like normally A tier or B tier armies, you'll just have a lot of fun with your friends.
Nothing is so much stronger than anything else right now.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
Gitz, like I think 10% nerf is all Gitz need, and then they're fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a hopeful note to end on. That's really nice. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We are going to close off the stream here. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. We have reviews for Hedonites, a quick review coming out for that. A quick review for Kharadron. I think Mrigank, you're taking the lead on that one. We have full reviews for Seraphon, Blades of Corn, and Ossiarch Bonereapers coming down the pipeline. And we also have How to Counter Tzeentch is coming soon. I almost forgot about that one. And a list spotlight video for the beginner Stormcast competitive list, including some mini battle report style things. If you watched our last video on Draculines, that's the kind of format we're going to do for that. Just showcasing game states and then deployments and talking through the decisions being made there. Jack, you're really good at the whole social media plugging thing. Give it a whirl.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, as Paul said, thank you very much for joining. Always, we really appreciate it. If you would like, subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff. It always helps. And do not forget to check out our sponsor at Kaiju Gaming. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, check out our Discord as well, please. We love to talk to you guys in Discord. Seeing the battle reports channel is probably my favorite thing. Seeing how you guys take all this theory and talk that we talk about and put it on the table, that's what really matters, and that's the best part of the Discord in my opinion. Besides, list building and the hobby stuff and general talking about news and being salty, it's all good stuff. So thank you guys so much for interacting with us, and if you haven't checked out the Discord, it's in the description of this video. Check it out, support us on Patreon, support Kaiju. Good times, guys.
Come
and check out Wohammer too.
Wohammer's
Wohammer.com for more stats. Yeah.
And if you've got a big dragon painted like a Star Drake or Kharazar or Krondas, put it in the Discord server. You might win a fabulous prize. Okay. Mrigank, any closing thoughts?
Oh, just great to have you guys, and thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.